Chapter 288. Late at night, in the study of the Dark Knight Castle, Tomek swirled the red wine in his hand and glanced at Mikakito sitting opposite him. "Shun, have you thought about the matter I mentioned to you last time?" Mikakito looked calm. "What do you mean, father?" Tomek put the wine glass on the table. "The inheritance of the Dark Knight family." Mikakito looked serious. "Father, I can't do that." "Why?" "Holly has changed a lot in the past 2 years. He has matured a lot and can take charge of things independently. You should hand over the Dark Knight family to him." Tomek said slowly. 2 years ago, I did say that if Holly could change, I would consider handing over the family to him. But I'm not satisfied with what he has done in the past 2 years. Mikakito pursed her lips. "I don't understand. I thought he had done a good job." Tomek shook his head and stood up. He walked to the desk and took out a book with a black cover from the drawer. He handed the book to Mikakito and looked angry. "Look at this book." Beitangshin took the book and opened it to the first page. On the first page there were 2 big words written in Italian, "Account Book." As he flipped to the back, he saw that every line was transaction information. The things recorded in the account book shocked him. He flipped through the account book without changing his expression and slowly raised his head. "You suspect Holly of corruption?" Tomek sneered. "It's not a suspicion. This is the evidence of Holly's corruption. He pocketed a total of 12 billion yuan after taking charge of those companies." Beitangshin said in a deep voice. "Foster father, could there be some misunderstanding?" Tomek raised his palm, his expression solemn and resolute. "There can't be a misunderstanding. I spent a lot of effort to get this account book. Shun, do you know where he spent the money? Gambling, horse racing, playing with women. If he were not my nephew, I would have punished him. In short, the Dark Knight family can't be handed over to him. He will ruin the family sooner or later." Mikakito frowned and pondered for a moment. "Father, I still can't agree to your request. After all, I'm an outsider. If I inherit the family, I can't convince the public and there will be misunderstandings between Holly and me. You're still healthy. Why don't you give Holly 2 years to change his bad habits?" Tomek shook his head. "Shun, there's an old saying in China. It's easy to change mountains and rivers, but it's hard to change one's nature. It's very difficult for Holly to change his bad habits. When I was still alive, he was already so brazenly greedy. After I die, who knows what he'll do? I'm still worried about handing the family over to him." Mikakito frowned and pondered for a long time. "Father, do you think it's feasible? Holly will inherit the family, and I'll help him for 3 years. After 3 years, if he doesn't change his bad habits, I'll inherit the family. If he's willing to turn over a new leaf, he'll continue to inherit the family." Tomek patted his shoulder heavily. "Shun, the family and Holly will be handed over to you." Mikakito looked serious. "Father, don't worry. As long as I, Mikakito, am alive, I won't let the family be ruined by Holly." Good. Tomek was very pleased. "I plan to announce this on the day of Hai's 1-month-old celebration." "Father, aren't you being too hasty? Holly doesn't know about this yet, right?" Tomek smiled. "I'm old. I've long wanted to pass this responsibility to you youngsters. Shun, don't worry. I'll talk to Holly." Mikakito came out of the castle and drove back to the city. Suzaka drove while he sat in the back with a serious expression. He knew Holly well. Although he appeared to be easy to get along with, he was actually a ruthless person who was full of ambition for the family business. Would Holly bear a grudge against him because of Tomek's decision? He rubbed his eyebrows with a headache. He suddenly felt that it was a wrong decision to ask for Holly's assistance. He didn't know how many conflicts there would be in the future. The next day, Tomek called Holly to the castle. The uncle and nephew talked in the study for more than 2 hours. When Holly came out of the study, his face was very ugly. He rushed out of the castle and got into the car. He sped all the way. His hands were tightly holding the steering wheel. The veins on the back of his hands were throbbing. His eyes were red with anger and murderous intent. He stepped on the gas pedal, and the car was like an arrow leaving the bow, carrying his vigorous anger as it sped away. In the chief appraiser's office of QXL, the largest auction company in Rome, Shui Ruyan stood in front of a landscape, painting with her arms around her shoulders. Her watery eyes were fixed on the painting. Suddenly, the door opened. A tall figure strode in and pulled her into his arms. His thin lips kissed her fiercely. She widened her eyes in shock. What she saw was Holly's cold eyes. She pushed him hard and made muffled sounds. He lifted his arm and threw her on the spacious sofa. Her heart was beating violently. From his dangerous eyes, she knew very well what was going to happen next. If she rejected him at this time, she would only be hurt. This thought only flashed in her mind. Her body had already made a decision. She lay under him obediently and let him tear her skirt apart. She stuck out the tip of her tongue and gently licked his lips. Her hands stroked his chest, trying to make him relax. His eyes were cold and without a trace of warmth. He threw the torn skirt on the carpet and unbuttoned her underwear with one hand. His teeth bit her breast hard. She groaned in pain and said softly, "Darling, be gentle." He didn't loosen his grip, but his stiff muscles relaxed a lot under her hands. Her soft hands landed on his belt and took off his pants for him. At the same time, he also took off her lace underwear, which was the only thing covering her body. He parted her legs and penetrated her fiercely. She bit his shoulder in pain. He sprinted with all his might, but she didn't feel any pleasure at all. It was so painful that she felt like her body was about to be torn apart. She groaned, her beautiful eyes misting over as she looked at him weakly and pitifully. "Darling, be gentler." Under her gentle call, he gradually came back to his senses. He kissed her red and swollen lips and gradually slowed down. Gradually, a numb feeling rose from his abdomen. She wrapped her hands around his neck and pulled his head down. She kissed his earlobe and said in a soft and seductive voice, "Darling, I love you." These 3 words were like magic. He hugged her even tighter. After she got used to him, he became fierce again. He bit her earlobe and whispered in a hoarse voice, "Baby, I'm sorry." She stroked his handsome face with her fingers and smiled gently. "It's okay. Who asked me to love you?" His emotions were surging. He kissed her lips deeply and she responded passionately. The 2 of them were deeply entangled. After the 2 of them reached the peak together, he hugged her and lay on the sofa. She leaned her head against his chest and drew circles on his firm chest with her slender fingers. Her voice was languid and a little aggrieved. "You ruined my dress." Holly pinched her chest mischievously and said with a naughty smile, "It's okay if the dress is ruined. It's good that you didn't ruin it." Shui Ruyan blushed and punched his chest. She pouted and said, "You're so naughty." He smiled devilishly and kissed her lips. "I'm so naughty. Do you like it?" She turned her head away on purpose and didn't answer him. He turned her head and looked at her with a burning gaze. "Answer me. Do you like it?" She bit her lip and still didn't answer. He smiled mischievously. "If you don't answer, we'll do it again until you answer." Her big eyes were watery and as transparent as crystals. She pouted and said coquettishly, "You're bullying me." His slender fingers slid down her inner thigh and he chuckled. "I like to bully you. Hurry up and answer me. Otherwise I like it." She suddenly clamped her legs together. Her cheeks were red and her eyelashes were fluttering like butterflies. "That's a good girl." He kissed her lips and sat up with her in his arms. Shui Ruyan looked at the rag in distress. "The dress is ruined. What should I do?" Holly shrugged nonchalantly. "Rest in the lounge. I'll get your assistant to buy it and send it over." He draped his suit jacket over her shoulders and stood up to tidy up his clothes. She suddenly grabbed his wrist. "Are you leaving?" He turned his head and smiled. "Why? You can't bear to part with me?" She nodded. He ruffled her hair. "I'm just going to my desk to make a call." She said, "Oh." He smiled brightly and she couldn't help but smile too. He returned after making a call and stared at her. "Can you still walk?" "What for?" "To the lounge, of course. Don't tell me you want to wait for your assistant like this." He didn't wait for her to answer and suddenly bent down to carry her. She hugged his waist and leaned her head on his chest. She said softly, "Darling, you seemed unhappy just now. Tell me and let me share your burden, okay?" Holly suddenly stopped in his tracks and his body tensed up. Shui Ruyan hugged his waist tightly and said gently, If you don't want to say it, then forget it. As long as you remember that no matter what happens, I'll stand by your side. He suddenly lowered his head. His eyes were dark and there were many things that she couldn't understand. He said softly, "You've changed. In the past, you only cared about benefits." She was stunned. Holly smiled bitterly. "If I still don't change after experiencing so many things, I'd be a fool. Holly, during my most difficult time, you were the one who gave me a second chance. I'm very grateful to you. The two of us are actually very similar. In order to get what we want, we'll do whatever it takes and even betray our friends and family. Sometimes, I feel very lonely." She looked into his eyes seriously and said slowly, "Do you ever feel lonely? If so, let me accompany you. Come and see." Songshu 566. Chapter 289. Holly stared at Shui Ruyan in silence. She lowered her eyes and smiled sadly. "You're still unwilling to believe me." He suddenly lowered his head and kissed her lips forcefully. Their lips and tongues intertwined. He kissed her as he carried her to the lounge. He kicked the door shut with his right foot. In the resting room, there was a very comfortable bed. He placed her on it and leaned his body on top of her. Unlike the rough and violent kiss just now, this time, he kissed her very gently. His hands teased her sensitive areas. She gasped for breath and gradually softened in his arms. Both of them were sweating profusely when they heard the assistant knocking on the door. "Miss Shui, I've bought the clothes. Should I send them in now?" Shui Ruyan was nervous and instinctively clamped her legs together. This action made Holly so comfortable that he almost ejaculated. Sweat flowed down from his hair and fell on her pink breasts. He looked extremely lewd. She grabbed his arm nervously. "Darling, what should we do?" "Idiot. She doesn't dare to come in. She'll leave if she doesn't hear a response." He didn't stop and continued to attack her. He even hit a certain part of her body. She almost screamed out loud and quickly bit her lips. The assistant knocked on the door again. "Miss Shui?" Shui Ruyan's eyes were watery and charming. She was panting and hesitating if she should make a sound. After that, she didn't hear the assistant knocking on the door. He probably really left. She heaved a sigh of relief. Her expression pleased him. He smiled wickedly and moved faster. In the end, he hugged her tightly. A warm current poured into her body and she came out with him. He hugged her and said in a sexy and husky voice, "Uncle called me to the castle today." She looked up at him and didn't say anything. She just listened quietly. He continued. "He said that I still have many shortcomings and can't inherit the family. He gave me 3 years to turn over a new leaf with Mikakito's help. He also said that if I don't have the ability to inherit the family after 3 years, he will strip me of my inheritance and hand over the family to Mikakito." She hugged him tightly, silently comforting him. Hatred flashed in his eyes. "Mikakito. Ever since the old man took him in as his adopted son, I have become useless in his eyes. No matter what I do, he is not satisfied. He will always compare me to Mikakito. 2 years ago, he wanted to pass the family business to Mikakito, but Mikakito pretended to reject him. I think he is looking for an excuse to strip me of my right to inherit the family business. This time he finally did it." Shui Ruyan stroked his back and said softly, "Darling, even if the old man has made his decision, you haven't lost. Haven't you always wanted to get rid of Mikakito? As long as you get rid of him, he will no longer pose a threat to you." Holly pursed his lips and said coldly, "I have to admit that Mikakito is a strong opponent. In the past 2 years, I have sent many assassins and even instigated the Sumiyoshi Kai and Inagawa Kai to fight for Yamaguchi-gumi's territory. However, he still managed to escape." Shui Ruyan's lips curved into a strange smile. "This time, he won't be able to escape. Aren't you already prepared to take action? Why don't you do it before little Haihai's 1-month-old celebration?" Holly frowned and looked down at her. "Bailey-han might be implicated. Don't you feel bad?" She chuckled. "I have said that I have already given up on him. But you, Xiaodong and Haihai, are you willing to sacrifice them?" Holly's light blue eyes were filled with complicated emotions. His thin lips were pursed and he tightened his grip on her shoulders. She smiled faintly. "If you can't bear to, then forget it. We will think of other ways. He slowly closed his eyes and was silent for a long time. When he opened them again, his eyes were filled with coldness. As long as I can defeat Mikakito, I will do anything. She lay on his chest and was silent for a moment. Then she said lazily, I need to work. He raised his eyebrows and looked at her. So? She pinched his handsome face. So, you should leave now. He grabbed her hand. I am the boss. I will give you a day off. She smiled. Thank you very much, boss. But you have to let me put on my clothes. They had been fooling around for a long time, and he did not want to continue. He got out of bed and went to the bathroom to tidy himself up. He walked to her side and kissed her forehead. I will ask my assistant to send your clothes in. You can rest for a while, and then I will ask the driver to send you back to the villa. I will go out to settle some matters. She smiled obediently. Okay. Be careful on the way back. He nodded and walked to the door. Suddenly, he turned around and frowned slightly. Can you move? Do you need me to wash it for you? She quickly shook her head. It's okay. Go ahead. I will come back early tonight. He smiled and closed the door of the lounge. Shui Ruyan lay on the bed and stared blankly at the ceiling. Bailey Han's handsome face appeared in her mind. Then it turned into Holly's face. She sighed and turned to lie on her side, curling herself up. Knock knock. Her assistant's sweet voice rang out. Miss Shui, I have placed the dress in the office. Is there anything else you need? Shui Ruyan said indifferently. There is nothing else. You can go out first. Okay. After her assistant left, she slowly got up and went to the office to retrieve the dress. Then she took a quick shower and changed into the new dress. It was a very fitting dress. The corners of her lips slowly curled up. When she heard Holly's voice on the phone, he told his assistant her measurements. After Shui Ruyan finished tidying up, she took her handbag and walked out leisurely. Her assistant stood up. Miss Shui, you are going out? Yes. I am not feeling well. I will go back first. If there is anything, call me. After she instructed her assistant, she left without looking back. She did not return to Holly's villa. Instead, she drove to the hospital. Shui Ruyan stood outside the nursery and looked inside through the glass. She could see a lot of Xiaobao babies lying on the small beds. Xiaodong's baby was in the innermost position. She looked for a while but could not find it. Lying on the crib facing the glass was a foreign baby. The baby's eyes were very big and bright. He stared at her without blinking. His little mouth moved slightly, as if he was very curious. Shui Ruyan smiled and waved at the baby. The little guy's eyes opened wider. His little mouth opened slightly and his hands danced as if he was responding to her. The smile on her lips became even more brilliant. The little guy danced for a while and suddenly grinned. The angel-like pure smile made Shui Ruyan suddenly shocked. An idea suddenly popped up in her mind. Perhaps having a child was not bad. But in the next second, the smile on her face froze. She slowly withdrew her hand, turned around and walked forward indifferently. If it were not for that woman, she would have already had her own baby. She would have even become the mistress of the family. She would not be like now, clinging to a man to live. Every time she got closer to her, Shui Ruyan's hatred deepened, and she hated herself even more. Tomac discussed with Xiaodong and her husband to hold a grand full moon party for Hai. Bailey Han did not want to bother him. But Tomac said that he still had an important matter to announce. Bailey Han also agreed. Because Hai was born prematurely, her body was thin and weak. So, she stayed in the hospital for more than 20 days in an incubator. It was not until a few days before the full moon party that her physical condition improved and met the standards to be discharged. There were many luxury cars parked in the hospital's underground parking lot. The most eye-catching ones were a red Ferrari and a black Rolls-Royce. They belonged to Mikakito and Bailey Han respectively. Today was the day that Xiaodong and the others picked up Hai from the hospital. Mikakito happened to be free, so she came with them. A black Audi slowly drove into the blind spot of the surveillance camera. After making sure that there was no one around, a pistol suddenly popped out of the window and smashed the surveillance camera. The door opened and a man in black clothes and a black mask came out. He was carrying a black bag in his hand and strode toward the Ferrari. He lowered his body and suddenly got under the Ferrari. He took out some tools from the bag and fiddled with the car. A few minutes later, he got up from the bottom of the car and walked toward the Rolls-Royce 10 meters away. He did the same thing for a while. Before the hospital's security arrived, the man in the mask had jumped into the Audi and quickly fled. Mikakito and Xiaodong went downstairs together with Suzaku behind them. After saying goodbye, Mikakito and Suzaku went to the Ferrari. Bailey-han opened the car door with Hai in his arms. Xiaodong sat in the front passenger seat and took the child. Bailey-han got into the driver's seat. After starting the car, he heard a strange sound coming from the car. He stepped on the accelerator, but the car did not move. Xiaodong turned around and asked, "What's wrong?" "It's broken down. Let's get out of the car first and find a tow truck to send it to the 4S store. We'll take a taxi back." Mikakito sat in the back seat with her eyes closed. Suzaku saw Bailey-han and Xiaodong get out of the car through the rearview mirror. She said calmly, "Their car seems to have broken down." Mikakito suddenly opened her eyes, got out of the car, and walked towards them. "What's wrong?" Bailey-han was calling for a tow truck when Xiaodong replied, "The car broke down." "Take my car." Hence, Xiaodong and Bailey-han got into the Ferrari with the child in their arms. The Ferrari slowly drove out of the garage. After driving for 2 streets, they saw Xiaodong's villa. Suzaku stepped on the brakes and suddenly realized that the brakes had broken down. The villa was right in front of them, but Suzaku had no intention of stopping the car. Xiaodong looked at Suzaku in the rearview mirror in surprise and reminded her, "Suzaku, we're here." Suzaku said calmly, "The brakes have broken down." Attention Songshu 566. Chapter 290. What? How did this happen? Xiaodong was shocked. Bailey-han hugged Hai tightly with one hand and held her hand with the other. "Don't be afraid." Mikakito glanced at Xiaodong with a serious expression. "Suzaku, slow down." Suzaku stared ahead. "It's no use. I can't control the speed." Bailey-han said, "Let's leave this block first. Take the West 3rd Ring Road and get out of the city." This road was the main road with a lot of traffic and people. They couldn't control the speed of the car now. If they encountered a traffic light, the consequences would be unimaginable. Vermilion Bird tightly gripped the steering wheel. Her palms were already sweating. She quickly glanced at the navigation system, and in her heart, she already had a general understanding of the traffic lights in the entire block. There was a traffic light about 100 meters ahead. She looked up and saw that it was a green light. There were only a few seconds left before the light turned red, and she had to rush over before the light turned red. She gritted her teeth and overtook the car next to her. The moment the green light turned red, she quickly drove over the zebra crossing. Bailey-han hugged Hai tightly and protected her. Xiaodong clutched the seatbelt tightly. Her heart was beating violently. Mikakito's face was very ugly. "I suspect that it's man-made." Bailey-han didn't look too good either. "The culprit must have predicted that after our car broke down, he would get in your car and then catch us all." "That's right." Mikakito's eyes were cold. "No matter who that person is, I won't let him off once I find out who he is." Bailey-han pursed his lips. "Now let's find a way to stop the car first." Suzaku's eyes were calm. She focused all her attention on the road ahead. She had to race against time and successfully cross one traffic light after another. Then, she had to drive the car to the remote suburbs and find a way to stop the car. 3 more seconds. Another traffic light was approaching. Vermilion Bird's muscles were stretched taut. She fiercely stepped on the accelerator, and with a schwa sound, she dashed forward. The situation was getting worse, and there was no way to slow down. Seeing a long line of cars waiting for the green light, Suzaku quickly turned the steering wheel to the right and drove the car into another road. Because of the sudden turn, Xiaodong's body tilted and she fell toward Bailey-han. Bailey-han subconsciously reached out one hand to support Xiaodong, and the other hand hugged Hai. Hai was held by his arm. The cries were so loud that Vermilion Bird's forehead broke out in cold sweat. Mikakito pursed her lips and said in a low voice, "Suzaku, be careful." "It's okay. We were too careless." Xiaodong quickly stroked Hai's little face, and comforted her in a low voice. Bailey Han loosened his arm and shook it gently. Hi, be good. Don't cry. Mika Kito frowned and pondered for a moment. Then she took out her cell phone and called the Dark Knight Castle. Godfather, it's me, Shen. Our car's brakes failed. We're trapped in the car now. Xia and the children are also in the car. I want you to send a helicopter to pick up the children first. If the brakes failed, there was another way. That was to use the bumper, carriage, and other rigid parts of the car to collide with obstacles, such as trees, stones, walls, etc., to create friction and force the car to stop and get out of danger. However, Hai and Xiaodong were still in the car. There was no way to do that. Hai was less than a month old. How could such a young child withstand the impact? Xiaodong had just undergone surgery and was recovering. She could not bear the impact either. Therefore, the first thing to do was to find a way to get Xia and Hai out of the car. After receiving the call, Tomac immediately ordered someone to arrange a helicopter and prepare some first aid medicine on the plane. This time, Suzuka specifically chose the small road. Although it was narrow, there were relatively few cars and no traffic lights. However, she had to be very alert to the passers-by. After more than half an hour of trepidation, the car finally sped onto the suburban road. In front of them, there was a team of traffic police carrying out their duties. They set up roadblocks to remind the cars to slow down, and from afar, they waved to Vermilion Bird to slow down. Hey, the car in front, slow down. A traffic police officer shouted with a megaphone. However, the Ferrari did not slow down and sped over like an arrow. Seeing the car getting closer and closer, the traffic police officer was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. He quickly dodged to the side. The Ferrari roared and a cloud of dust drifted with the wind. Quick, catch up with the car in front. The captain saw that the situation was not good, and immediately jumped into the police car. The police car quickly caught up. The captain picked up the megaphone and shouted, "The car in front, pull over quickly." The Ferrari did not slow down and sped on the open road. A traffic police officer sensed that something was wrong and said, "Captain, could it be that the car's brakes have failed?" The captain thought for a moment and continued to shout with the megaphone, "The car in front, listen up. If you can't slow down because the brakes have failed, please call me. My number is..." Soon the captain's phone rang and he quickly picked it up. "Hello, I'm a passenger in the Ferrari. Our car's brakes failed. There's a baby and a patient who just had surgery in the car. Please inform the relevant departments to remove all the roadblocks on this road. It's best to let other cars divert to ensure that the Ferrari is unimpeded." The captain was stunned. "How should I address you?" "Mika Kito, my name. Please give the order immediately." Mika Kito's voice became stern. "Okay, I got it. I'll inform the station immediately." After the captain ended the call, he immediately reported what had happened to his superior. Then he made emergency arrangements to remove all the roadblocks on this road, and set up roadblocks at the exit and entrance of the road. He also informed everyone to change lanes. The Ferrari drove further and further away on the outskirts of the city. A helicopter suddenly flew in their direction, and roared in mid-air. Andrew, who had once protected Xiaodong, was sitting in the pilot's seat. He was fully armed and wore an avionics headset. He contacted Mika Kito through the microphone. "Young Master Shen, this is Andrew. Please drive the car to a spacious area. I'll drop down a rope ladder to bring Miss and Miss Hai up." Bailey Han suddenly felt a little lucky that they were in Mika Kito's Ferrari. This car was a convertible. After opening the roof, it would be easier for the people in the car to climb up the rope ladder. Bailey Han asked, "Do you have a rope?" Suzuka said, "Yes, it's in the glove compartment next to the passenger seat." Mika Kito, who was sitting in the passenger seat, opened the glove compartment. Sure enough, she found a ball of rope inside. It was about the thickness of a grain of rice and was very strong. This was the rope that Suzuka used to jump on roofs and walls. At the end of the rope, there was a claw-like iron hook that could grab anything to fix the rope. Mika Kito handed the rope to Bailey Han. Bailey Han tied Hai tightly to Xiaodong's chest and said, "Honey, take Hai and leave first later. Don't be afraid. We'll help you down there." Xiaodong looked down at Hai. who was sleeping soundly on her chest. She gritted her teeth and nodded firmly. Okay, I can do it. For her daughter, she had to do it. She grabbed Bailey Han's hand nervously. Honey, you have to be careful too. Bailey Han smiled reassuringly. We will, Suzaka suddenly said. There's a pair of gloves and a pair of goggles in the glove compartment. Miss Xia, please put them on. They can protect your hands and eyes. The gloves were very thin. After putting them on, there was no obstruction at all. At the same time, they could protect Xiaodong's hands very well. According to Suzaku, the gloves were made of python skin. The roof of the convertible slowly opened. Bailey Han unfastened his seatbelt and helped Xiaodong stand steadily. Because the car was moving too fast and the strong wind was blowing, Xiaodong did not feel much with the goggles on. But Bailey Han could barely open his eyes. He could only stand with his back facing the direction of the wind. Andrew looked for an opportunity to get closer to the Ferrari, but this section of the road was a mountain road and kept turning. After driving through an empty section of the road, before they could connect, there was another turn. Xiaodong and Bailey Han had no way to grab the rope ladder. Andrew, what should we do? There's no way we can get close to the car. Ahu, who was sitting in the co-pilot seat, was sweating profusely. Andrew gritted his teeth, his eyes shining with determination. Don't worry. Pay attention to the ground and be ready to connect at any time. There's a bridge 10 kilometers ahead. Under the bridge is a river. If the car tries to crash at the bridge, it might crash into the river. Just in case, ask for speedboat support. Ahu, contact the castle immediately. Understood. Ahu picked up the communicator and contacted the castle. On the ground, Suzaku had also noticed the bridge and river marked on the GPS. She calculated in her mind. If they could crash at the bridge before they crossed it, even if the car could not stop, they still had a way out, and that was to jump into the river. The three of them were very skilled and knew how to swim. If there was someone to help them under the bridge, they would definitely be able to survive. However, the premise was that Xiaodong and the child had to be sent out first. Suzaku briefly mentioned her idea. Mika Kito and Bailey Han did not have any objections. Xiaodong nervously grabbed Bailey Han's hand. Hubby brother Shen Suzaku, nothing must happen to you. Bailey Han held her shoulders tightly and said in a deep voice, Don't worry, we will be fine. Honey, after you grab the rope ladder, you must be careful. Beitang Shen smiled and said, Xia, I'm glad that I taught you self-defense 4 years ago. With your skills, I'm sure you'll be able to hold on to the rope ladder. Believe in yourself and believe in us. We still have to hold a 1-month-old celebration for Cece. Suzaku's gaze was still fixed in front, but the corners of her lips curled up. Miss Xia, there's something I've been hiding from you. When you were kidnapped and sold to the small mountain village, it was me and White Tiger who did it. I've always wanted to apologize to you. Miss Xia, I'm sorry. She gazed at Xiaodong through the rearview mirror. Her usually cold eyes were filled with apology. Attention Songshu 566. Chapter 291. Xiaodong smiled slowly. I know. I've known for a long time. Suzaku looked surprised. Since you knew that I was the one who kidnapped you, why didn't you refuse when I was ordered to protect you? Weren't you worried that I would hurt you again? Xiaodong's smile became even brighter. I believe in Brother Shen. Since Brother Shen asked you to protect me, he must think that you are trustworthy. Suzaku, I've never hated you. The vermilion bird was taken aback. Her eyes were filled with complex emotions. Xiaodong smiled and turned around. She waited with Bailey Han for the rope ladder to get closer to the Ferrari. Even if there was only a very, very small chance, she couldn't give up. Mika Kito's phone suddenly rang. It was the captain of the police car behind them. He sounded very anxious. Mr. Beitang, the bridge 9 kilometers ahead is under construction. Cars can't pass through. You have to stop the car before you reach the bridge. Mika Kito pursed her lips and said in a low voice, Officer, please contact the traffic police for backup. Okay, no problem. Mika Kito hung up the phone and said in a low voice, The bridge in front is not open to traffic. We have to stop the car before we cross the bridge. They were getting closer to the bridge, but the helicopter couldn't get close to the Ferrari. Everyone's hearts were in their mouths. Mika Kito clenched her fists tightly. Bailey Han stared at the helicopter hovering in the air, with a gloomy expression. His right hand, which was resting on Xia Dong's waist, was already sweating. The bridge had already appeared in front of everyone. It had been broken into 2 sections, and there were still workers working on the bridge. They finally understood why cars couldn't pass through the bridge. Especially when looking down from the plane. The thrill of the broken bridge and the depth of the river made Ahu so nervous that he broke out in a cold sweat. "Oh no, we're almost at the bridge. We must hurry." Andrew gritted his teeth. He grabbed the control lever with both hands and slowly pushed it down. Suddenly, the helicopter swooped down. The rope ladder swept towards the Ferrari due to gravity. "Quick, the rope ladder is coming." As they got closer and closer, Bailey Han ignored the speeding car and suddenly jumped up and grabbed the rope ladder. "Quick honey, I got it." Xia Dong's heart raced. With Bailey Han's help, she grabbed onto the rope ladder with one hand. Bailey Han let go of the rope ladder and hugged Xia Dong's legs with both hands. He used all his strength to lift her up. "Honey, harder." Mika Kito leaned over from the front passenger seat to help Bailey Han support Xia Dong. Xia Dong used all her strength to climb up the ladder. She kicked her legs hard and tried to prop herself up. The 2 people standing in the car pushed her legs hard at the same time. Slowly, she was finally pulled out of the car by the helicopter. "Honey, hold on tight." Bailey Han watched as her body swayed with the rope ladder. His heart was about to stop. Xia Dong gripped the rope ladder tightly with both hands. The wind blew past her ears and messed up her long hair. Her long dress fluttered in the wind. She gritted her teeth and looked down at the ground. Bailey Han and Mika Kito stood in the back seat of the car and stared at her. They were too far away and she couldn't see their expressions. However, she knew that they were worried about her, just as she was worried about them. "Young madam, hang on. I'll pull you up right away." Ahu's voice came from above. Xia Dong's body was hanging in midair. Her arms were bearing all the weight of her body. At first, she could still bear it, but gradually her arms became sore and numb. It felt as if they were about to break. The rope ladder was slowly retracted towards the helicopter. She gritted her teeth and held on. On the ground, Suzaku was ready to crash. "There's still 500 meters left. If the car doesn't stop at the bridge, we'll jump into the river." At this moment, they didn't know that someone was monitoring everything in real time through a listening device. In the villa, Holly sat on the sofa with his hands on his knees. His face was cold and his eyes were deep and sinister. He stared at the listening device on the marble table. The conversation inside the device could be heard in the empty room. Shui Rian walked in from outside. She was wearing sexy spaghetti strap pajamas. She crossed her arms and sat lazily on the armrest of the sofa. She said calmly, "You didn't press the remote control because you wanted to let Xia Dong and her daughter go, right? It's not too late to press it now." He didn't look at her. He took out a remote control the size of an MP3 player from his pocket and pressed the red button on it. Shui Rian shrugged. "You heard it too. They're ready to crash. They might be able to escape." Holly sneered. "The car will explode in 30 seconds. They won't be able to escape." Under the Ferrari, the time bomb had been activated. It made a very soft beeping sound. The roar of the car covered the sound of the time bomb timer. No one realized that death was very close to them. The car was getting closer to the bridge. It was about 200 meters away. The timer under the car showed that there were only 20 seconds left. Suzaku aimed at the bridge and stepped on the accelerator. The car rushed towards the bridge. Just as they were about to reach the stone tablet at the bridge, her heart skipped a beat. She felt that something bad was about to happen. She suddenly shouted, "Whether the car stops after the crash or not, we'll jump into the river." If the car hit the bridge, she and Mika Kito would be the first to bear the brunt of the impact. They would be in the most danger. If they jumped into the river the moment the car hit the bridge, their chances of survival would be higher. This thought flashed through the minds of the 3 of them. 10 seconds, 8 seconds, 5 seconds, the car hit the bridge. "Jump!" Suzaku suddenly unbuckled her seatbelt and jumped into the river. At the same time, Mikakito and Bailey Han jumped out without hesitation. The moment the three figures jumped out of the car, there was a loud boom as the Ferrari exploded. Flames shot out in all directions, and a strong airflow pressed down on the three of them, pushing them far away. The speed of their fall also increased. Plop! Plop! The three of them fell into the river one after another. At this moment, Xia Dong was still hanging in midair. However, she was very close to the cabin door. She saw the car explode and the scene of the three of them jumping into the river. Tears gushed out of her eyes. She grabbed the rope ladder tightly and screamed, "Hubby! Brother Shen!" Ahu was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. "Young madam, don't be agitated. The rescue team is on the way. Please come up first." When Xia Dong heard Ahu's voice, her panicked heart calmed down a little. She stared at the river. Sure enough, there was a speedboat speeding toward the place where the three of them fell. Behind the speedboat was a speedboat marked police. The water traffic police had also arrived. "Quick over here. You guys go over there." The Castle of the Night and the water traffic police jumped into the river at the same time to search for Bailey Han and the other two. I see them. They're over there." Someone pointed in a direction and shouted. A head popped out of the water and slowly swam toward the speedboat. The second one, the third one, they're all out. They're all alive. That's great. Harry, drive the speedboat closer. The rescue team cheered excitedly. The two pilots steered the speedboat closer to Bailey Han and the other two. A few rescue team members had already rushed over. They formed teams of two and carried the three of them toward the speedboat. "Brady, hurry up and pull young Master Shen up." Two rescue team members lifted Mikakito's body. Soon, Bailey Han and Suzaku were also rescued. The people in the helicopter also heaved a sigh of relief. Ahu stood at the cabin door and shouted, "Young madam, young master and the others have been rescued. Give me your hand. I'll pull you up." Xia Dong's anxious heart finally settled back into her chest. She looked up and saw Ahu's familiar face. He reached out a hand and gazed at her. Just one more step, and she and Hai would have been safe. However, her hands had been holding on for so long that they were numb. She tried to free one hand to grab Ahu's hand, but she couldn't do it. She was worried that if she freed one hand, her other hand wouldn't be able to hold on before she could grab Ahu. "No, Ahu, I can't hold on any longer." Xia Dong felt her body getting heavier and heavier. It felt like there was a 1,000-kilogram rock under her feet. Her abdomen also hurt a little. She guessed that she had pulled on her wound. "Young madam, don't worry. Move back a little. Be careful not to hurt Hai. I'll raise the ladder a little more." Xia Dong looked down at Hai. She was so small. She was like a soft little ball of meat lying on her chest. She couldn't let Hai get hurt. With this belief in her heart, a sudden burst of energy erupted from her body. She gritted her teeth and leaned back. When Ahu pulled the ladder up, she suddenly freed her right hand and grabbed the handle of the cabin door. "Ahu, hurry." Ahu hurriedly grabbed her arm and pulled her body, which was hanging outside, in. Xia Dong slumped in her seat. Her entire body was drenched in sweat, and her wet skirt stuck to her body. She looked up at Andrew, who was sitting in the front row, and asked while panting, "Andrew, how are Han and Brother Shen? Are they hurt?" Andrew connected to the Dark Knight family's speedboat and asked about their situation. Then he said, "Miss, the three of them are slightly injured. They're very conscious now. Young master, please don't worry." Xia Dong was relieved. Fortunately, the river was deep and the three of them were skilled. They entered the water in the correct position, so their injuries were relatively light. Ahu handed her a jacket. "Young madam, please put this jacket on first." "Thank you." Xia Dong's arms were sore. The simple act of taking the jacket was difficult. With trembling fingers, she untied Hai from her chest and put on the jacket. Hai's sleep was disturbed. Her tightly shut eyes moved and her little hands clenched. It seemed like she was about to wake up. Xia Dong shook her arms gently and hummed softly. She leaned into her arms again and slowly fell asleep. Attention, Xinwu 799. Chapter 292. Bailey Han and the other two leaned against the side of the speedboat. Bailey Han's arms and legs were slightly scratched, Mikakito's ears were ringing, and her arms were also slightly scratched. Suzaku's back was injured by the airflow during the explosion, and a palm-sized burn was inflicted. Fortunately, it wasn't serious. The accompanying doctors on the speedboat had already given them emergency treatment. The speedboat sailed on the river, getting further and further away from the bridge. The Ferrari was still burning at the bridgehead, and police cars had already arrived to put out the fire. Bailey Han stared coldly at the burnt car and said in a deep voice, "There was a bomb installed on the car." Mikakito glanced at Suzaku. If Suzaku hadn't suggested to jump into the water, we would have been killed by the explosion. Suzaku said indifferently, "I'm curious why the bomb only exploded when it hit the bridgehead." Bailey Han frowned and said in a deep voice, "There are two possibilities. One is the activation method of the bomb. If the bomb is controlled by sound, it will only explode when the decibel reaches a certain level. The vibration caused by the collision caused the sound to reach a critical point, so the bomb exploded. The other possibility is that it was a time bomb. The other possibility is that the other party had already set the time, and the bomb would naturally explode when the time was up. It has been 1.5 hours since we left the garage. If we had escaped the car before the explosion, wouldn't the other party's scheme have failed? I feel that we have overlooked something." Mikakito frowned. Bailey Han's eyes were cold and murderous. "No matter what, I will find the mastermind behind this and make him pay the price." Mikakito remained silent, but the murderous intent in her eyes was no less than Bailey Han's. On the other side, after Holly heard Vermilion Bird shout jump, he only heard a huge explosion sound, and after that, there was no other sound. He didn't know whether Beitangshin and the other two were dead or not. His face was cold, and he was a little irritable. Shui Ruyan pursed her lips. "Darling, don't worry. There will be news soon." The helicopter landed on the private helipad of the castle. Tomac, who had rushed over after hearing the news, was waiting in front of the helicopter. Ahu carried Hai and walked down first. Xiaodong slowly walked down the helicopter with Andrew's help. "Xia, are you okay?" Tomac asked with concern. Xiaodong approached him and joked, "Godfather, I'm fine. It's just that my arms are so sore that I don't even have the strength to carry Hai. It's good that you're fine. You little girl, you scared this old man to death." Tomac was all smiles as he took Hai from Ahu's arms. "It's okay if you can't carry Hai. You still have me, your god-grandfather." Hai had woken up at some point. She stared curiously at the old man with a white beard in front of her with her big, beautiful eyes. Her little mouth moved a little, and she looked extremely adorable. Tomac laughed heartily and caressed her pink little face. Hi baby, do you want to say hello to Grandpa?" His smile infected Hai. She opened her little mouth and revealed a beautiful smile. Tomac was so excited that his beard twitched. "Look, Hai is smiling at me. Aya, this little girl is so lovable." In less than an hour, Bailey Han and the other two were also sent back to the castle. They had already changed their clothes on the speedboat, and their injuries had also been treated, so they didn't look disheveled. Instead, they looked as dignified and calm as usual. In the study, Bailey Han and Mikakito said in unison, "Godfather." Tomac looked serious. "You've worked hard. What do you think about what happened today?" Mikakito said, "The other party not only damaged the brakes, but also installed a bomb in the car. He wanted to kill us. I suspect that it was done by other families, but I don't have any evidence." Bailey Han said, "I've already sent people to the underground parking lot of the hospital to look for clues. In addition, the fragments of the bomb have been collected. Maybe we can find some clues." Tomac's eyes darkened. He tapped his fingers on the armrest of the chair and said in a deep voice, "Ever since I took over Barit's forces, there are still some dissidents who have been secretly operating. Shun, send someone to investigate their movements." Mikakito responded. Something suddenly flashed through his mind, but when he thought about it carefully, he couldn't grasp it. Coming out of the study, he had been silent the whole time. Walking side by side with Bailey Han in the corridor, he suddenly stopped in his tracks, and a strange light flashed through his deep eyes. Bailey Han stopped and turned to look at him. "What's the matter?" Mikakito didn't want to say much, but when he saw the serious look on Bailey Han's face, he said slowly, You know about how I dealt with Godfather and Su Yunqian some time ago in China, right? It was a standard statement. He didn't doubt Bailey Han's well-informed sources at all. Bailey Han said in a low voice, I've heard about it. Are they related to this matter? Mikakito's eyes were cold. He said lightly, when I dealt with Su Yunqian, I found out that Su Yunqian has a backer, and her backer is related to the Italian mafia. Bailey Han's eyes darkened. You suspect that Su Yunqian's backer is behind this matter? Mikakito sneered. After I found out that she has a backer, I've been investigating that person's identity. However, until now, I haven't found out anything, which means that the person is very powerful. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to hide so well in the sphere of influence of the Anya family. Bailey Han frowned. Let me ask you, under what circumstances would you help a woman at the risk of exposing your identity? Mikakito stared into his eyes, and the corners of his lips curved into a mocking smile. You know very well, don't you? It's either because I love her, or because it's profitable. Bailey Han touched his chin and said expressionlessly, Su Yunqian is already dead, but the person behind her is still so ruthless. Is it really because he loves her that he wants to avenge her? Mikakito said lightly, It seems that you also think that her backer is behind this. Bailey Han didn't deny it. This is only one possibility. The dissidents that foster father mentioned are also very suspicious. Mikakito looked at him and said, Bailey Han, let's work together to find that person. Bailey Han said lightly, This is also what I want to tell you. Okay. Mikakito raised his hand, and Bailey Han also raised his hand. Their palms collided, making a crisp sound. There was the sound of the door lock turning, and Xiaodong suddenly stood up. The door opened, and Bailey Han walked in slowly with a warm smile on his face. Hubby! Xiaodong quickly ran over and hugged him tightly. Her eyes were filled with tears. Hubby, this is great. You're still alive. Silly, I still want to be with you until we grow old. How can I die so easily? Bailey Han hugged her tightly, his chin gently rubbing against her hair. I really thought that I would never see you again. When I saw you jump into the river, I wanted to follow you. If it weren't for Cece, I might have really let you go. Song Yunxuan's eyes were filled with tears. Xiaodong choked and couldn't continue. Last time, he was shot in the head to protect her. She had already suffered a lot. This time, when she saw the car explode and they jump into the river, there was only one thought in her mind. If he died, she didn't want to live anymore. Xiaodong, look at me. I won't allow you to think like that. Bailey Han suddenly held her face, forcing her to look directly into his eyes. His face was covered with frost. Ever since they got married, this was the first time he called her by her full name. This was also the first time he showed such an angry expression. Even if I really die, I won't allow you to die with me. You have to live well and raise our child. His sexy thin lips were tightly pursed, and he said word by word, Moreover, I won't mind if you remarry. If you're not happy, I won't be at ease even if I die. He held her shoulders tightly. Of course, even if you remarry, you can't forget me. You have to hide me in your heart. Do you understand? Xiaodong's face was full of tears. Silly, how can I bear to let you die with me? My Xia is a strong girl. Even without me, she can live well. Bailey Han's voice softened. He wiped away the tears on her face, and the tenderness in his eyes almost drowned her. Don't say any more, don't say any more. Xiaodong suddenly threw herself into his arms and burst into tears. She clenched her fists and hit his back. You jerk, why are you talking about death? We're not going to die. We're going to grow old together. Bailey Han hugged her tightly. Yes, we'll definitely grow old together. Silly girl, don't cry. Xiaodong cried out all the fear and panic that she had just suffered. She felt much better and gradually stopped sobbing. With his help, she sat on the sofa. He asked gently, Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? She rubbed her eyes in embarrassment. Other than my arm being sore, I don't feel uncomfortable anywhere. Really? Does your abdomen hurt? Worry appeared in his eyes. His palm landed gently on her abdomen, where the surgery was. She hesitated for a moment and said, It hurt a little at first, but it's fine now. No, you have to check it. If it's a wound in your uterus, it'll be serious. He picked her up without any explanation. She was caught off guard and quickly hugged his waist. Hubby, what are you doing? I'm taking you to the hospital for a checkup. I'm really fine. How about you? Are your injuries serious? Hurry up and put me down. I only have superficial wounds. There's no problem at all. Gigai, don't move. Bailey Han patted her but lightly. Be good. Hey, put me down. There are so many people. Don't make a fuss. Be good. They didn't see anything. The servants, led by the butler, lowered their heads silently. We really didn't see anything. Welfare Songshu 566. Chapter 293. Bailey Han carried Xiaodong and strode to a car. A servant came forward and opened the car door for them. He placed her in the back seat and got in as well. He instructed the chauffeur, drive to the hospital. Yes, Mississippi son-in-law. The car drove all the way to the hospital. After the examination, the hospital said that Xiaodong's wound was recovering well, and there were no problems. After coming out of the office, Xiaodong poked Bailey Han's arm in amusement. Are you relieved now? He didn't mind at all and stroked her hair. Yeah, I'm relieved for now. She raised her eyebrows. Why is it temporary? His tone was tender. It takes at least half a year to recover from a C-section. On the surface, it looks like you've recovered, but in reality, the damage to your uterus will take a long time to recover. She hugged him. Hubby, don't worry. I'll be very careful in the future. He kissed her forehead. Honey, you've suffered. She smiled and shook her head. He suddenly sighed. I'm going to suffer too. She didn't understand. He whispered in her ear. We won't be able to sleep together for 100 days. Don't you think it'll be very hard? His hot breath tickled her ear. She coughed embarrassedly. Let's not talk about this here. He could tell that she was uncomfortable. He chuckled softly and didn't continue. He held her waist. Honey, are you tired? Let's go home and rest for a while. Xiaodong frowned. Hubby, I keep feeling that something's wrong. Bailey Han held back his laughter. What's wrong? Xiaodong looked at herself and then at him. Her eyes suddenly widened and she cried out. Hi. Where's Hi? Bailey Han couldn't hold it in anymore and laughed loudly. He hugged her and kissed her face. Honey, you're too cute. Why did you only think of Hi now? Oh my God, I'm so incompetent as a mother. I actually forgot about Hi. Ooh. Xiaodong felt so guilty that tears welled up in her eyes. Honey, don't blame yourself. It's all my fault for taking you away so suddenly. Don't worry, Hi is with Godfather. Many people will take care of her. Hubby, I still feel very uncomfortable. How could I forget about Hi? Could it be that she really wasn't a good mother? Woo, you're just too tired. Good girl, don't blame yourself anymore. He looked into her eyes seriously. In my eyes, you're the best mother in the world. Hubby, you really know how to comfort me, he ruffled her hair. Let's go to the castle in the afternoon and bring Hi home. We'll have dinner with foster father while we're at it. How about that? She smiled. Okay. After Bailey Han and the others returned safely to the castle, Holly received the news. He threw the eavesdropping device on the marble floor, and the antique vase closest to him also didn't escape the fate of being smashed to pieces. Damn it, they're so tough. Holly gnashed his teeth with hatred, and his eyes were bloodthirsty. Shui Ruyan couldn't tell whether she was more disappointed or happy. She said lightly, we didn't kill them this time, but I'm afraid it'll be more difficult in the future. Holly suddenly turned his head and stared at her coldly. Bailey Han didn't die. Shouldn't you be happy? Shui Ruyan's nails dug into her palms, and a wronged expression appeared on her face. I've already said that I don't care whether he lives or dies. Why don't you believe me? If you hadn't been soft-hearted and wanted to let Xiaodong and her daughter go, they would have been. Are you blaming me? Holly suddenly reached out and pinched her chin with his slender fingers, and a dangerous light flashed in his eyes. Shui Ruyan gritted her teeth and stubbornly raised her cheek, but there was a faint fear in her eyes. I'm not blaming you. I'm just stating the facts. He stared at her eyes and raised his hand high. She closed her eyes in fear, and he suddenly clenched his hand, pushed her away, and got up. Shui Ruian heard the footsteps go away, and she slowly opened her eyes. Her long eyelashes drooped, hiding the complicated emotions in her eyes. The study was a mess. The bookshelves were pushed aside, and books were scattered all over the floor. Shui Ruian gently pushed the door open, and saw Holly standing by the window with his back to the door. The sunlight shone on him through the white curtains, adding some gentleness to his cold back. She quietly walked behind him, stretched out her hands, and hugged him. He didn't move. Silence. After a long time, she said softly, "Do you still remember the first time we met?" He didn't say anything. She said softly, "At that time, I was still a dancer in the Royal Ballet Troupe. One night, I was on my way home from a party and was blocked by a group of hooligans. It was you, like a god descending from the heavens, who saved me." His body stiffened, and he said in a deep voice, "At that time, you were drunk and I sent you home. You hugged me and called out Bailey Han's name." She caressed his waist with both hands and chuckled softly. "Did you fall in love with me long ago? That's why you slept with me while I was drunk. You're my first man." His stiff body slowly relaxed. "You were the one who grabbed my hand and didn't let go." She pouted. "Then you could have rejected me. I was drunk to begin with." He suddenly turned around and stared into her beautiful eyes, and his lips curled into a naughty smile. "Who asked you to be so beautiful? Anyway, I'm not at a disadvantage. You're annoying." She pushed him gently. He grabbed her hand and said softly, "Baby, I'm sorry. Sometimes, I can't control my emotions." "I know. I've never blamed you." She leaned her head on his chest and said in a lonely voice, "Holly, I only have you. If there comes a day when you don't need me anymore, you must tell me so that I can leave with dignity." He was silent for a long time, so long that her heart turned cold. She slowly left his embrace and turned around. However, he suddenly grabbed her wrist and pulled her back into his embrace. He pressed her head against his chest. "No, that day won't come." She chuckled. "Even if it's a lie, I'm still very happy." He lifted her chin with his slender fingers and saw her tear-stained face. However, there was still a smile on her lips. "Thank you." Damn it. His heart actually ached for her. "It's not a lie." As soon as he said that, he suddenly bent down and kissed her lips. Like lightning striking the earth, their lips and tongues were intertwined, and they couldn't be separated anymore. She put her hands on his neck. He carried her up and put her on the desk. The two of them kissed passionately. He rubbed her softness through the fabric while her slender fingers unbuckled his belt. His pants slipped. Her slightly cold fingers grasped his burning spot and slid slowly. His fingers also invaded her mysterious realm. Liquid flowed down from the desk. She looked at him seductively and pulled him closer to her. "Darling, do you want me?" He did as she wished. He held her slender waist and thrust forcefully. The sound of the desk shaking, the sound of bodies colliding, and the sound of lewd panting mixed together. Among the piles of books, they were playing out a primitive scene of love. Ah Bao, who was sent to the hospital's underground parking lot to investigate, quickly reported back to Bailey Han. The surveillance camera in the underground parking lot had been destroyed by a pistol. The security guards rushed to the underground parking lot after the alarm went off, and saw a black Audi leaving quickly. Because it was too fast, the security guards didn't see the license plate number clearly. Abao also contacted the maintenance engineer at the Rolls-Royce Forest store, and found out that the Rolls-Royce's fault was man-made. The person who did it was very skilled. If it wasn't for the expert, it was basically impossible to tell that it was man-made. Based on this clue, Abao used the information system of the Dark Knight family to investigate more than 20 names. These people were all experts in this field. Then he investigated more than 20 people one by one to find the suspect. As for Mika Keto, he had personally communicated with the people from the Transportation Bureau to take away the bomb fragments, and let the bomb experts in the Dark Knight family study them. The experts spent more than 3 hours to reassemble the fragments. After matching the images of the bomb with the system library, they made a shocking discovery. Young Master Shin, this bomb was developed by the Dark Knight family a few months ago. This type of bomb is usually smuggled to the Middle East countries. It's almost impossible to find it in Italy. Mikakito's eyes suddenly narrowed and his face darkened. He knew what this meant. It was very likely that this bomb was leaked out from the Dark Knight family. Who was that person? Was it really someone from the Dark Knight family? Mikakito ordered coldly. Don't tell anyone about this. I understand. Just in case, Mikakito took away all the bombs and erased all the access data. If there was really a traitor in the Dark Knight family, they must be more vigilant to avoid being detected and alerting the enemy. Since the car accident, Mikakito was very careful when driving. Before getting in the car, Suzaku checked carefully to make sure it was safe before they got in the car. Suzaku opened the door of the back seat. Mikakito didn't get in but said lightly, "I'll drive today." Suzaku's eyes moved. "Why? Your back is injured." He glanced at her and walked to the driver's seat. "That's just a minor injury." She wanted to stop him, but he was already in the driver's seat. He looked at her with his deep eyes. "Get in." She closed the door of the back seat and sat beside him. He was the boss. She didn't dare to let the boss drive for her while she sat in the back seat. Mikakito didn't say anything. He started the car and drove out of the old castle. The burn on her back was nothing to Vermilion Bird. In addition, she had already applied the ointment, so she wouldn't feel too much pain now. She leaned back in her chair and turned her head to look at the scenery outside the window. Her mood was temporarily soothed. Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 294. Mikakito glanced at Suzaku and said, "I asked you to check Shui Ruian's background. How is it going?" Suzaku turned around and glanced at him. Shui Ruian appeared in Rome more than a month ago. I've checked and found that she entered the country from South Korea. I've sent someone to South Korea to investigate, but I haven't received any information yet. She paused and said, "Do you suspect her?" Mikakito's eyes were deep as he said, "This woman is very evil. I have a feeling that she's hiding something." Suzaku nodded and said, "During my investigation, I found that she's like a mystery. She suddenly appeared with a perfect identity, but other than Holly, she has no other connections. I can't verify her identity." Mikakito said coldly, "She's very good at disguising herself." The phone suddenly rang, and Mikakito pressed the answer button. It was a call from Jiang Dao. "Boss, we've found the whereabouts of Raphael's painting, Xiao Woman in a Veil. The buyer is Earl Patrick from England. I'm on my way to England now. I think I'll be able to find out the seller's background soon." When Thunder was interrogated, he said that Jamie's men helped him dispose of the painting. If they could find out who sold the painting, they would be able to dig out Jamie's owner, and that person was Su Yinqian's backer. Mikakito said in a deep voice, "Let me know immediately if you have any results." Yes. The next afternoon, Mikakito received Jiang Dao's feedback. Earl Patrick had mentioned the seller's name. The seller was called Samuel Victor. According to Earl Patrick's description, Jiang Dao had asked a portrait simulator to draw a portrait of Samuel. After he took a picture, he sent it to Mikakito through his mobile phone. Mikakito immediately handed the portrait to Andrus and asked him to find a trustworthy brother to search for this person's whereabouts. Samuel Victor was also known as Franklin Delano. Franklin was a very famous art broker in the black market. All the works of art that passed through his hands were stolen goods. He was very tight-lipped and would not reveal any information about the buyer or seller. On the other side of the phone, Andrew said, "Young Master Shin, I've already asked someone to bring Franklin to a secret villa. Are you coming over now?" Mikakito took her coat with one hand and walked out with her phone in the other. "Tell me the address." When Mikakito and Suzaku arrived at the secret villa, Franklin was sitting in the living room with two bodyguards beside him. He looked calm, as if he wasn't worried about his situation at all. Mikakito sat opposite him and waved her hand. The two bodyguards left the living room, and Suzaku stood behind him, expressionless like a statue. "Franklin, let's talk about the painting Xiao Girl in a Scarf. I've told you everything I know. Jamie gave me this painting and asked me to sell it for a good price. He'll give me a 10% commission." Mikakito said calmly, "I want to know who Jamie works for." Franklin shrugged. I don't know. Jamie and I aren't old friends. Is that so? I don't think so. Beitang Shun's slender fingers tapped on the back of the sofa as his lips curled into a sneer. I've already had someone check your transaction records. Out of every 10 transactions, 4 of them were brought to you by Jamie. The reason why your transaction volume has sharply decreased in the past 2 months is also because of Jamie's disappearance, right? Franklin was a little surprised. How did you find out about this? Mika Kito sneered. The Dark Knight family has never failed to find out what they want to find out. You should know the consequences of going against the Dark Knight family. Aren't you curious about where Jamie went? Franklin's body trembled and his eyes widened. You killed Jamie. Beitang Shun lazily leaned back, indifferently glanced at him and said, in fact, he bit his tongue to commit suicide. Of course, if you don't want to tell me what you know, you can also choose to die like him. However, if that's the case, you won't be able to enjoy your 30 million worth of assets. Franklin's face changed, but he didn't give in easily. I only made deals with Jamie every time. He didn't mention anything else. Mika Kito sneered. Your memory doesn't seem to be very good. I wonder if you can remember if I invite your new girlfriend over for a cup of coffee. On the way to the villa, Mika Kito had read all of Franklin's information. Franklin's forehead was already sweating. No, this has nothing to do with Irene. Please don't make trouble for her. Beitang Shun leaned forward and looked into his eyes seriously. He smiled and said, Franklin, let's make a deal. What deal? You just need to tell me who Jamie works for, and I can guarantee the safety of you and your girlfriend. A demon's smile was very seductive, especially when the demon forced a person into a desperate situation and used his smile to seduce people. Very few people could resist that kind of fatal seduction. Franklin hesitated for a moment and finally gave up his professional ethics for his lover. I once saw Jamie standing together with a QXL executive at a cocktail party. They seemed to be very close. Later, I asked him about it, but he denied it, saying that he didn't know any QXL executive. Mika Kito's eyes moved. QXL was the Dark Knight family's business. If he remembered correctly, Holly was now in charge of it, and Shui Ruyan was also working in that company. He asked in a deep voice, which executive? What's his name? QXL's deputy general manager, George. Before that guy joined QXL, he was also in the black market like me. That's why I know him. Beitang Shun stared into his eyes. After Jamie went missing, did anyone take the initiative to contact you and supply you with goods? Franklin shook his head. No. You're right. Jamie was a very important source of goods for me. So after he went missing, I suffered a great loss. Mika Kito pursed his lips. It seems that they have abandoned you. Although I don't want to admit it, that's the truth. Franklin shrugged helplessly. That's how it is to be in our line of work. It's very risky. I've already told you everything I know. Now, it's your turn to fulfill your promise. Mika Kito said calmly. Suzaku, send him out. Yes. Suzaku walked to Franklin's side. She took the blindfold from the table and put it on his head. Then, she took his arm and led him out of the living room. Outside the living room, the 2 bodyguards took Franklin from Suzaku and stuffed him into the car. They slowly drove out of the villa. QXL, did this company have anything to do with Jamie? What secrets were hidden in it? When Suzaku walked into the living room, Mika Kito was still sitting on the sofa. She looked down and tapped her fingers lightly. She seemed to be thinking about something. She pursed her lips and said calmly, if Jamie is related to QXL, then the most suspicious person is Holly. As the manager of QXL, Holly can't not be involved in this matter. Mika Kito slowly raised her head. Her gaze was deep as she said in a deep voice, it's too early to make a conclusion. Now we have to find out the relationship between Jamie and George. Suzaku's lips curved into a mocking smile. Even if you don't want to listen, I still have to say it. Holly is also a suspect in the car accident. Don't you think that your position in the Dark Knight family is too high and you're putting pressure on him? He has a motive to commit the crime. Mika Kito had considered this, but she didn't want to suspect it. However, where there was power, there was bound to be competition, suppression, and even destruction. When she proposed to help Holly, she had already expected that it would cause animosity between her and Holly. Was the mole in the family really Holly? 2 days later, Mika Kito's men were still following George and paying attention to his movements. Abeo made a breakthrough. In the process of investigating the suspects, he locked onto a man named Peter. Peter used to be a car mechanic. He had been in jail for stealing cars, so he knew cars very well. Abeo pretended to be a customer and offered a high reward for Peter to fix a car so that it wouldn't start properly. Under the temptation of a high reward, Peter readily agreed. After he damaged the car according to the agreement, the engineer who repaired the Rolls-Royce checked the fault of the car and confirmed on the spot that the fault of the two cars was the same. It was definitely done by the same person. Peter realized that he had been set up. He wanted to run away, but 3 men in black suits suddenly rushed over and subdued him. After a round of torture, Peter confessed. A few days ago, when I was fixing the car, a black Audi suddenly stopped in front of me. The man in the car asked me if I wanted to make a lot of money. I was short of money, so I agreed. The next day, the man told me to wait for him at the designated place with the tools. Then he drove me to the underground parking lot of the hospital and asked me to fix the Ferrari and the Rolls-Royce. He also installed a bomb and a bug under the Ferrari. Why did you install a bug? Abeo asked. I don't know. It was my employer's order. I just followed his orders. What's his name? I don't know. Do you still remember what he looks like? I know how to draw. I can draw it for you, but you have to promise me that you won't kill me or hand me over to the police. Okay, I promise. But if you dare to fool me, I will never let you go. After some negotiation, Peter drew a portrait. He said, "That man looks very cold. He doesn't talk much. He is muscular and has scars on his arms. I suspect that he is a mercenary. Come and see." Hongcha 866. Chapter 295. Peter's portrait was soon sent to Mikakito. Suzaku took a look at the portrait and frowned. I think I've seen this person somewhere before. Let me think. She held the portrait with both hands and paced around the room with a thoughtful look on her face. Mikakito did not rush her and waited quietly for her answer. Nearly 3 to 4 minutes later, she suddenly stopped and a trace of surprise flashed through her eyes. I remember now. When I was investigating Shui Ruyan some time ago, I saw this man opening the car door for her. At that time, his face was tilted to the side, so I couldn't see it clearly. But when he walked to the driver's seat, I saw his face clearly. It's really him. This matter is related to Shui Ruyan. Mikakito was shocked. He clenched his fists and stood up with a cold expression. We must inform Bailey Han immediately and alert them. He was worried that Shui Ruyan would take the opportunity to do something bad to them. Vermilion Bird nodded. Just as she was about to call and tell Bailey Han about this matter, her cell phone suddenly rang. She glanced at the caller ID and quickly picked it up. She didn't know what the other party said, but her face became uglier and uglier. Finally, she revealed an expression of disbelief. What's going on? Mikakito asked after she ended the call. Suzaku frowned and said concisely, Shui Ruyan is Su Yinqian. What? Mikakito was shocked. Something flashed through his mind, and he sounded a little anxious. You've already confirmed it? Yes. The person who was sent to South Korea said that he found out that Shui Ruyan had undergone plastic surgery. He used a lot of methods to find the doctor who did the plastic surgery for her. He also got a photo of her before the surgery from the doctor. The photo showed that Shui Ruyan and Su Yinqian are the same person. After a moment of shock, Mikakito quickly calmed down. His handsome face was terrifyingly gloomy. Everything makes sense now. Su Yinqian turned into Shui Ruyan and appeared here to take revenge. Suzaku analyzed calmly. She couldn't have done it alone. After she entered South Korea, her only contact was Holly. Now, are you still willing to believe that Holly is innocent? Mikakito clenched his fists. He exuded a cold aura and his eyes were cold. If Holly is really Su Yinqian's backer, I won't go easy on him. If Holly really did something to harm him in Xiaxia, he would never forgive him. After Bailey Han learned about Shui Rian's true identity from the vermilion bird, he was also very shocked. His mind quickly flashed with the scenes of every meeting with Shui Rian. Her speech, her actions, her expression. In the end, he couldn't help but admit that Su Yunqian's acting was too brilliant. She played Shui Rian so vividly that there were no flaws. After a short moment of shock, Xia Dong began to feel scared. She had thought that Bailey Han and Mika Kito's attitude toward Shui Rian was strange. Now she knew how wrong she was. Hubby, if Su Yunqian did something to Xiao Guai and Hai Hai, I can't imagine it. Don't think too much. Bailey Han hugged her and stroked her back. There was a cold light in his eyes. Now that we know her true identity, we must strip her of her disguise. Didn't Brother Shen say that her bodyguard bribed Peter to plant a bomb and a bug under the car? I think it's very strange. She should hate me the most. If that's the case, why did she wait until Hai Hai and I escaped from the car before detonating the bomb? Countless thoughts flashed through Bailey Han's mind. He stared into her eyes, wanting to say something but hesitated. Hubby, do you know something? He moved the corners of his lips and said in a low voice, Honey, I suspect that Holly is Su Yunqian's backer. I once heard from Mika Kito that Su Yunqian has someone behind her, and the person behind her is the Italian mafia. Now all of this points to Holly. Xia Dong widened her eyes in disbelief. She grabbed his arm tightly and murmured, Impossible. Holly is very good to me and the children. Bailey Han held her shoulders tightly. Honey, the car exploded after you escaped because Holly couldn't bear to kill you and Hai Hai. Xia Dong shook her head and said anxiously, No, he's also very close to Brother Shen. Holly hates Mika Kito too much. How could they be close? It's just a show. How could that be? Because Mika Kito has threatened Holly's position. Godfather once said that he would announce a major decision at Hai Hai's 1-month-old party. This major decision has to do with Holly inheriting the family business. If Holly can't correct his mistakes within 3 years, he will be stripped of his right to inherit the family business, and Mika Kito will replace him to inherit the family business. Xia Dong's voice was dry. How did you know? Bailey Han said softly. Godfather once asked for my opinion on this matter. At that time, I suggested that Holly might fall out with Mika Kito because of this matter. Godfather said that this is also a test for Mika Kito and Holly to see which one of them is qualified to inherit the family business. Xia Dong's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She bit her lip. I still don't believe it. Although Holly is playful and unrestrained, he has always been very good to us. When I didn't know a word of Italian, he taught me patiently and even taught me how to ride a horse. As she spoke, tears fell from her eyes. On my birthday, he gave me a horse. He named the horse Princess. He said that the horse was just like me, the princess of the Dark Knight family. She cried and shook her head. I don't believe it. I don't believe that such a gentle person would do such a cruel thing for power. Bailey Han hugged her tightly and stopped trying to persuade her. He knew how she felt now. She had already regarded Holly as her brother. She didn't believe that her brother would do anything to hurt her or the other family members. It was just like when he found out about Su Yunqian's true colors. He also found it hard to believe. After coaxing her to sleep, Bailey Han went to the study and called Mika Kito to discuss with him how to find evidence to expose Holly and Shui Rian's true colors. George, this chess piece should be put to good use. George was a man in his 40s. He had gray hair and a big belly. He always had a smile on his face. There was a hidden light in his light green eyes. And he was also a lecherous man. This morning, he went to the cafe to buy coffee. There was a beautiful Asian woman in front of him in a long red dress. Her long hair fell over her shoulders, and the cleavage on her chest was faintly discernible. She was very attractive. She looked anxious and was negotiating with the clerk. I'm sorry, I really lost my wallet. I work in a company nearby. Can I send the money over later? The clerk said apologetically, I'm sorry, Mississippi. It's against the rules. George squeezed forward. I'll pay the bill for Mississippi. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you give me a business card? I'll pay you back. George took out a business card and handed it to her. He smiled and said, You don't have to pay me back. If you have time, you can buy me a drink. Okay, no problem. The woman smiled and reached out her hand. Hello, Mr. George. My name is Suzaku. George took her hand and smiled. Suzaku. That's a very special name. Are you Asian? Yes, I am. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. Suzaku waved the coffee in her hand. Thank you for the coffee. After work in the evening, George walked out of the QXL building. From afar, he saw a red figure standing next to a marble pillar. Her figure was very attractive. He couldn't help but take a few more glances. He didn't expect that figure to suddenly turn around. He was stunned. It's you. It's me, George. Can I buy you a drink? Suzaku smiled brightly. Her lips curled up seductively. Her face was really beautiful. Her enchanting smile made George dizzy. He walked a few steps forward and stopped beside her. He chuckled and said, Of course, it would be my honor. She tilted her head and winked playfully. Drive your car. Okay. George drove his car over and opened the door for her like a gentleman. She smiled charmingly and sat elegantly in the passenger seat. George looked at her with a lustful gaze. Where are we going? Keynesian Hotel. I heard that the red wine there is very good. She stroked her hair elegantly and unconsciously licked her red lips. She was seductive and seductive. George's eyes were about to burst into flames. He couldn't help but glance at her chest. Without the cover of her hair, the cleavage was even more obvious. He took her words and actions as sexual innuendo and was overjoyed. He stepped on the accelerator, and the car sped towards the Keynesian Hotel. At the same time, Mikakito called Holly. Holly, there's something I think I have to tell you. Holly was about to have dinner with Shui Ruyan. When he received the call, he put down his knife and fork and leaned back. He said slowly, Ashin, what's the matter? Have you found out who caused the car accident? Mikakito said in a deep voice, No, I'm still investigating the car accident. However, during the investigation, I found that QXL's deputy general manager, George, used his position to steal the company's auction items and sell them to the black market. Holly's eyes narrowed. He exclaimed in disbelief, George? He really did such a thing? Yes. He also said that he wasn't the only one who did this in QXL. There were others like him who sold the auction items. My subordinate, Suzaku, is talking to him now. I hope he will confess to the others. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 296. Holly tightened his grip on the phone. His eyes were cold and his voice was filled with anger. Damn it! How could George do such a thing? Is Suzaku negotiating with him now? Where are they? I want to ask him face to face why he betrayed the family and the company. He's at the Keynesian Hotel. Holly, I hope you can calm down. Don't be impulsive. Suzaku had a hard time convincing him to confess. I know. Don't worry, Shun. Thank you for telling me this. I won't let anyone who betrays the company off. After ending the call, Holly hung up the phone angrily. Damn it. I knew that bastard George was unreliable. Holly grabbed his coat from the hanger and kissed Shui Ruyan's forehead. I'm going out. I can't have dinner with you. Shui Ruyan held his hand worriedly. Darling, don't worry. Maybe Mikakito is lying to you. She's trying to make you panic. Holly said coldly. I have my suspicions too. That's why I have to go there personally to see if George has confessed. Be careful. Shui Ruyan didn't say anything else and walked him to the door. Holly sped all the way. When he arrived at the hotel, Mikakito was already standing on the lawn in front of the hotel. He was wearing a black suit and stood tall and straight. Under the bright lights, he was as dazzling as a god in the night. Shin, why are you here? Holly walked quickly to him. Mikakito smiled. I'm worried that you'll be too impulsive and mess things up. Holly smiled embarrassedly. You know me best. Let's go in. Mikakito grabbed his arm. Don't be hasty. Suzaku had a hard time convincing George and promised him that she wouldn't hold him responsible. Only then did he agree to tell us the names of the others. If we go in now, he won't be willing to give up the names of the others. Holly tried to suppress the restlessness in his heart and smiled. Then what do you think we should do? Mikakito pointed at the glass window not far away. Look there. No wonder he was standing here. As long as he turned a little, he could see the hotel lobby through the glass window. Vermilion Bird and George were sitting by the window, facing each other. Although he couldn't hear what they were saying, he could clearly see the serious expressions on their faces. In the hotel lobby, Suzaku and George sat facing each other. George's face was solemn, and even his habitual smile had disappeared. He asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" Suzaku said coldly, "It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that my gun is pointed at your chest right now. Let me ask you, did you work with the thieves to steal QXL's auction item and sell it to Franklin through Jamie to make a huge profit?" In the past few days of investigation, they found that QXL had been visited by thieves who stole a large number of auction items at once. Under the table, Suzaku held a gun in one hand and aimed it at George's chest. However, the people standing outside the glass window didn't see it. George's eyes widened. "How did you know?" "Before Jamie died, he already gave you up. He also said that Holly was behind all this. If you're willing to stand up and testify against Holly, I can spare your life." George was silent for a moment. "Do you think I'll believe you just because you say that?" "I won't betray Holly." Suzaku smiled. "George, I really admire you. For Holly, you're willing to bear the crime of betraying your family. But you didn't expect that in order to protect yourself, Holly planned to push all the blame to you. No, that's impossible." Suzaku pointed out the window. "Look outside. You must know the man standing with Holly. Holly and Mikakito are here to testify against you." On the other side, Holly was getting impatient. Although he could see their expressions, he couldn't hear their conversation. He shook his head and said, "No, I'd better go in and take a look. I want to hear George say the names of those traitors in person." Mikakito patted him on the shoulder and smiled. "Holly, when will you change your temper?" George clearly saw Holly's irritable expression and how Mikakito comforted him. George automatically took it as a form of comfort after shirking responsibility. George began to feel uneasy. If Holly really pushed all the blame to him, he wouldn't be able to forgive himself even if he died 100 or 1,000 times. He took a deep breath and said, "Okay, I agree to tell you everything." Just then, there was a rush of footsteps. Holly's tall figure strode towards them. George's back was to the door, so he didn't see him. Suzaku glanced at Holly out of the corner of her eye. She calmly put away the gun under the table and said, "Are you sure you want to tell me everything?" "Yes, I'm sure." "Very good." These two sentences just happened to fall into Holly's ears. He was already standing by the table, staring at George with an ashen face. "George, how dare you steal the company's collection?" George was shocked. His first reaction was to look at Suzaku. Suzaku shrugged and said, "He has already put the blame on you. Am I right?" George was irritated by her expression and stood up abruptly. "Holly, you know that I was following your orders. Damn it, how dare you frame me? George, you must be tired of living." Holly stared at George coldly. George was too familiar with that gaze. Every time one of Holly's subordinates made a mistake, he would stare at that person with that gaze and make him suffer. George knew very well that Holly was threatening him. George was tongue-tied and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Mikakito patted Holly's shoulder and said helplessly, "Holly, I know you. You would never do such a thing. Let's listen to what George has to say first. Don't scare him." Holly's gaze was still locked on George, but his lips curled up into a smile. "Ah, Shun, fortunately you understand me. George, go ahead and explain everything clearly. Don't let anyone misunderstand." Suzaku acted as if she did not see Holly and comforted George softly. "George, don't be afraid. Tell us everything you know. I will help you." George did not dare to say anything when the demon in human skin was standing beside him. He clenched his fists and suddenly stood up. "I'm sorry, everyone. I'm not feeling well. I'll leave first." The fat figure fled as if there was a monster chasing after him. "Hey, George." Suzaku wanted to chase after him, but was stopped by Mikakito. "Forget it. Don't force him. Let him calm down. We'll find a chance to ask him tomorrow." Suzaku sighed. "That's the only way." Holly looked apologetic. I'm sorry. It's all because I was too impulsive. It's okay. He was hesitant to begin with. I just have to put in a little more effort. Suzaku smiled thoughtfully. Boss Mr. Holly, please continue. She nodded politely and then walked out of the hotel. Holly glanced at her back and turned to look at Mikakito. He smiled apologetically. Shin, you won't blame me, right? Why would I? Don't take it to heart. Suzaku will find a way to pry open George's mouth. Mikakito smiled. Do you want to have a drink? Holly shook his head exaggeratedly. Forgive me. Ruyan is still waiting for me at home. If she finds out that I'm drunk, she will shut me out. Mikakito chuckled. Okay, I won't force you. The two walked out of the hotel, chatting and laughing, and drove away in their respective cars. Mikakito glanced at Suzaku, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. Suzaku coughed and said, During my conversation with George, I was sure that Holly had something to do with the resale of the auction items. Unfortunately, George was so close to identifying Holly. Mikakito pursed her lips and said calmly, It's okay. At least, we are sure that Holly has something to do with this. I know him. He will never let George go. Send someone to keep an eye on them. Mikakito was not the only one who knew Holly. George knew him too. George knew that Holly would not let him go. So after he fled home in a panic, he immediately packed his luggage and planned to escape Rome overnight. However, he was still one step too late. The moment he stepped out of the house with his suitcase, the assassin hidden in the dark aimed his gun at him and was about to pull the trigger. Suddenly, the assassin felt a sharp pain in his calf. Something had drilled into his leg. He couldn't stand still, and his body swayed. The bullet that he fired also deviated from its fixed trajectory. Be careful. George had just taken 2 steps when someone jumped out of the bushes and pushed him to the ground. George's chubby body fell to the ground, and he grimaced in pain. He thought that he had encountered Holly's assassin and struggled with all his might. The man on top of him said in a low voice, Don't move. I'm here to protect you. George immediately stopped struggling, and the man dragged him to hide behind the bushes. The assassin sent by Holly dragged his leg, which was shot through by a bullet, and raised his gun to look for traces of George. Blood stained his trousers and left a trail on the ground. Poochie, another bullet shot into his other leg. Quick, catch him. 2 black figures suddenly ran out from behind the tree and subdued the assassin in a few moves. The assassin still wanted to struggle, but he was hit on the back of his head and fainted. At this time, Jiang Dao walked over with George. Get him into the car. George, you come with me. After getting into the car, George saw the assassin's face in the dim light. He was indeed sent by Holly. The group returned to Mikakito's place. George didn't hesitate to tell him everything he knew about Holly's crimes after saving his life. Even in his dreams, Holly had never imagined that Baitangshan's purpose in luring him to the hotel wasn't to have George identify him on the spot, but to arouse his desire to silence George. Thus, Baitangshan was waiting for him. Beauty novel Hongcha 866. Chapter 297. They had done a good job. They had gotten George's testimony and found out that the unlucky killer was the one who had bribed Peter to destroy the car and plant the bomb in it. The killer was called Mickey, a mercenary. He was also Holly's best bodyguard. It was not hard to explain why Holly would ask him to do the dirty work of silencing people. Mickey had a strong mental fortitude. After he was arrested, he did not say a word, let alone testify against Holly. Suzaku glanced at Mickey, who was imprisoned in the iron cage, and asked Mikakito's opinion. Should we torture him? Baitangshan raised his right hand as a cold smile appeared on his face. There's no need. His existence is already a very good piece of evidence. Even if Mickey did not speak, there were other witnesses. It was enough to bring down Holly. Mikakito went to the castle and talked to Tomak for more than an hour. He presented all the evidence he had gathered during this period of time to Tomak. Tomak was, after all, someone who had been through a lot. He did not show any signs of shock, nor did he try to find an excuse for Holly. He remained silent with a complicated look in his eyes. There was disappointment, sadness, anger, and a hint of struggle. After a long time, Tomac said slowly, "Tomorrow is Hai-Hai's full moon party. We will expose him and Shui Rian's true colors then." Mikakito was stunned. "Godfather, are you sure about this?" Holly was his nephew. Mikakito felt that it was not easy for him to not cover up for Holly. "Do you think I am too cruel?" Tomac sighed with a sorrowful expression. "Ah Shun, I'm also responsible for Holly's current state. I always felt that he had lost his parents when he was young, so I should let him feel the warmth of a family. That's why I neglected to discipline him and nurtured his bad habits. This time, I should also be ruthless. Otherwise his life will be over." On the way back, Beitangshan couldn't help but think about this matter. This was the first time he saw Tomac reveal such a sorrowful expression. Although Tomac was the father of the mafia and was a legend that was unreachable, he was still an ordinary person. He also had family needs. He treated Holly as his own son, so it was no wonder that he would be sad. The 1-month-old banquet was held in the castle of the night. Those who were invited were the heads of the big families, as well as many rich people, politicians and celebrities. In short, those who could get an invitation were all people with a reputation. The main hall of the castle was magnificent and dazzling. A beautiful melody lingered in the hall. Men in luxurious clothes slowly entered the hall with their female companions. Their every movement showed their noble status. The music suddenly stopped. All the lights converged on the spiral staircase. Everyone's eyes were fixed on it. Tomac stood there in a black tuxedo. There was a gentle smile on his weathered face. He gently knocked on his wine glass and said loudly, "Everyone, thank you for coming to my granddaughter's full moon party. First, let's invite up today's little hero." "Okay." There was a burst of laughter in the hall. At the entrance of the spiral staircase, a couple walked down side by side. The man was wearing a white tuxedo. He was handsome and tall. He was holding a baby in his arms. The woman was wearing a white evening gown, and she looked quite pretty and elegant. Those who knew her immediately said in a low voice, "That's Tomac's adopted daughter, Xia Dong. The man next to her should be her husband." The couple walked to Tomac's side. Tomac looked sideways at Hai-Hai, who was lying in Bailey Han's arms. The little girl was staring at him curiously with a pair of round eyes. He couldn't help laughing. "Everyone, the one in my son-in-law's arms is the second little princess of the Dark Knight family, Bailey Han. Today is Hai-Hai's full moon party. Thank you for coming to congratulate her. I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to all my friends." As soon as Tomac finished speaking, his friend, the head of the Phil family, said loudly, "Hey friends, let's raise our glasses and wish Hai-Hai a healthy and happy growth. Congratulations. Congratulations. May little Hai-Hai be safe and healthy." Everyone smiled kindly and raised their glasses to congratulate Tomac's family. Tomac and Xia Dong slowly walked into the hall and introduced the guests. Xia Dong and Bailey Han politely greeted them. Little Hai-Hai in his arms received many red packets and gifts. The head of the Phil family, Sam, was the most direct. He put a diamond bracelet on little Hai-Hai's wrist and pinched Hai-Hai's pink cheeks happily. "Little girl, how about you be our little Ian's wife in the future?" Ian was Sam's favorite grandson. He had just turned 2 years old. Tomac deliberately blew his beard and glared. "Why? Hai-Hai is still so young, and you're already planning to kidnap her into your family. Are you declaring war on me? I say, old man, are you itching for a fight with me again? If that's the case, just say it. I'm clearly trying to match-make 2 children. How did it become kidnapping?" The 2 old urchins bickered happily. Xia Dong held back her laughter and whispered in Bailey Han's ear, "Uncle Sam and Godfather have been old friends for many years. They often do this." Xia, little girl, what are you saying about us?" Sam's white beard curled up and his eyes widened. He looked very funny. "Oh no, Uncle Sam heard it. I just told Ahan that you always lose when you fight with Godfather." Xia Dong stuck out her tongue playfully. "I'm giving in to him." Sam insisted. Tomac raised his eyebrows proudly. "Thank you so much, old man. You've been giving in to me for more than 30 years. When will you show me your true strength?" Sam shrugged. "We're old friends. Winning or losing isn't important. Friendship is, so I've decided to continue giving in." The two of them teased each other for a while more. Sam suddenly said, "Old man, why don't I see Holly and Shun?" The smile on Tomac's face froze. "They'll be here soon. I have something to announce later." "What is it? Why are you being so mysterious?" Tomac patted him on the shoulder and smiled. "I can't tell you for now. Old man, have a few more drinks. I'll take the two of them for a walk." Even though Bailey Han was carrying a child, it couldn't hide his charm. From time to time, young girls who had just experienced their first awakening of love would cast shy glances at him, or beautiful young women would cast scorching glances at him. Xia Dong was slightly jealous. Fortunately, the man beside her had his eyes on her, and Hai from beginning to end. It seemed that he didn't notice the gazes of those women at all. Xia Dong looked at his gentle expression when he teased Hai and couldn't help but laugh. Bailey Han turned to look at her. Suddenly, he put an arm around her shoulders and lowered his head to kiss her face. She blushed and whispered, "What are you doing? There are so many people here." He chuckled softly. "I think I can taste something sour." Embarrassed, she pushed him away a little, trying to find a hole to hide in. His laughter was mellow and sexy. It sounded like he was in a good mood. "I like it when you're jealous." Xia Dong felt that she couldn't live any longer. Fortunately, her godfather helped her out. He stood in the middle of the hall, knocked on his wine glass and said, "Everyone, there's one more thing that I would like to announce to everyone during the 1-month celebration." Everyone's attention was focused on Tomac, including Xia Dong and Bailey Han. The smile on Tomac's face had long disappeared. His expression was solemn as he glanced at everyone in the hall. Finally, his gaze landed on Mikakito and Holly, who were slowly walking in from the entrance of the hall. Everyone followed his gaze and saw Mikakito and Holly. They automatically parted to make a path for them. The two of them walked closer and closer, until they were surrounded by everyone. Then they walked to Tomac's side and stood still. Holly's blonde hair was slightly curly, and there was a polite smile on his handsome face. His silver suit made him look tall and slender. On his right, Mikakito was wearing a black suit. Her facial features were cold and expressionless, and she exuded a dignified and mature charm. Tomac glanced at everyone and said in a deep voice, "I hereby announce that I, Tomac, will sever ties with Holly. All of Holly's assets will belong to the Dark Knight family, and the family has the right to take back all of his assets." The smile on Holly's face froze. He stiffly turned his neck and stared at Tomac in shock. "Uncle, are you kidding?" Tomac said calmly. "This is not a joke. Holly, you know very well what you have done. From this moment on, we are no longer uncle and nephew. Now please leave." The crowd was in an uproar. They were also stunned. Sam stood up and said sternly, "Tomac, don't be rash. If there's anything, talk to Holly." "There's no need to talk. There's no turning back for this matter. Holly, I hope you can learn from your mistakes and turn over a new leaf." Tomac turned around and no longer looked at Holly. His tone was cold and emotionless. "Leave. I don't want to see you again." The crowd whispered and guessed what had happened. All kinds of eyes fell on Holly. Some were sympathetic, some were disdainful, some were suspicious, but most of them were shocked. Holly clenched his fists. He couldn't hear what the people around him were saying. The only thing in his mind was Tomac's words. He wanted to sever ties with him and confiscate all of his assets. No, how could he do this? He was his nephew. Why was he so heartless? Holly's eyes were burning with anger. He stared at Tomac's back. His body was stiff. He stood still and didn't move an inch. Tomac had his back to him and shouted coldly, "Butler, please ask Mr. Holly to leave." Welfare, Xinwu 799. Chapter 298. Xia Dong was shocked. She could not believe what she had just heard. When the butler led the bodyguards in and grabbed Holly's arms, she finally reacted and rushed out. Bailey Han wanted to hold her back, but she pushed him away forcefully. Xia Dong rushed to Tomac and said anxiously, "Godfather, you can't do this. You can't treat Holly like this." Tomac's Adam's apple bobbed and he said in a low voice, Xia, don't get involved in this matter." "No, Godfather, Holly is your nephew. You can't treat him like this." Is there a misunderstanding? Xiaodong looked at Mikakito, who was expressionless and silent. She said anxiously, Brother Shin, say something and plead for Holly. Mikakito's thin lips moved slightly and she said indifferently, Xia, since Godfather has decided, let's do as he says. Mikakito, you bastard. It's all because of you. Holly could no longer suppress his anger. He kicked away the bodyguards who were holding him and pounced on Mikakito. Mikakito, you hypocritical bastard. I'm going to kill you. Holly's right hand reached for his waist out of habit. Bailey Han's heart tightened, and he hurriedly pulled Xiaodong behind him to protect her. The others also stepped back, afraid that Holly would accidentally hurt them. Only Tomac and Mikakito remained standing in the distance with cold expressions. Damn it! Holly did not touch the pistol, because when the bodyguard approached him, he had already taken away his weapon when he was unprepared. He had already lost his head due to anger. His punches and kicks were filled with fierce killing intent. Beitangshin responded calmly and began to fight with him. Mikakito held his arms and said coldly, Holly, if you continue to cause trouble, you'll only embarrass yourself more. Beitangshin, all of this is your fault. You took away everything that belongs to me. I will not let you off. Holly's eyes were spewing fire, and his killing intent was wreaking havoc. He suddenly attacked and punched Beitangshin's chest. While dodging, Beitangshin kicked sideways, hitting Holly's abdomen. Holly held his abdomen in pain and stared at Beitangshin with eyes filled with hatred. Tomac suddenly shouted, Enough! Someone, hurry up and drag Holly out of here. 3 or 4 bodyguards rushed up and spent a lot of time subduing Holly, who was trying to resist. The bodyguards dragged Holly out of the hall. Holly did not give up and shouted hysterically, Uncle, why are you doing this to me? Why? Tomac's face turned ugly. He clenched his fists tightly and tried to suppress the anger in his heart. This bastard still did not know how to repent. Why are you doing this to me? Don't you remember what you promised my father? You said that you would take good care of me. Holly was dragged out and kept turning back to roar. Tomac's face was ashen. He suddenly shouted, Stop. The bodyguard stopped. Holly thought that there was a chance for a turnaround and quickly pleaded, Uncle, no matter what misunderstanding there is between us, please give me a chance to explain. Good, very good. I'll give you a chance. Tomac's voice was bone-chilling. Let me ask you, did you steal QXL's collection and sell it to the black market? Did you get someone to destroy Ahan and Ashin's car, and plant a bomb under Ashin's car? Tomac's continuous questioning was powerful and resonant. It was like a bomb exploding in the empty hall, shocking everyone. Holly denied it. No, I didn't do any of these things. I've been wronged. Tomac's eyes were filled with disappointment. Things had already come to this point, but Holly still refused to admit his mistake. Ashun, take out the evidence and convince him. Those who attended the banquet in the hall were all influential people. Tomac wanted to save some face for Holly, but since he refused to repent, Tomac wanted to expose him in front of everyone so that he could no longer quibble. Mikakito was already prepared. She waved her hand, and Abeo and Jiang Dao each walked into the hall with a man in tow. Peter was caught by Abeo, and Michael was caught by Jiang Dao. Peter pointed at Mickey's nose and said, This is the man who paid me $1 million to destroy 2 cars and install a time bomb under the Ferrari. Tomac said coldly, Michael is your bodyguard. Weren't you the one who ordered him to do all these? Holly was about to say something, but George, accompanied by Suzaku, stepped forward. He didn't dare to look directly at Holly's angry eyes and said submissively, Sir, I can testify that it was Holly who ordered me to sell the company's auction items to the black market. This is my account book for the past few years. George took out a small account book from his chest, bowed, and handed it to Tomac respectfully. Tomac flipped through the account book and stared at Holly coldly. It's clearly recorded in black and white. What else do you have to say now? Holly's face turned pale. He gritted his teeth and said, I admit that I ordered George to do those things, but I didn't order Michael. I had nothing to do with the car explosion. Mikakito suddenly said, Do you mean that Michael didn't collude with Peter to kill me and Bailey Han under your order? Yes, that's right. I didn't know about it at all. It was Michael's personal behavior, Holly said firmly, pushing all the blame to Michael. Although Mickey was employed by Holly, he had a strong sense of honor. He obeyed all the orders. No matter if it was killing or arson, he would keep his mouth shut. Even if he was tortured, he wouldn't reveal anything about his employer. However, he would never allow others to frame him. Thus, his cold face had a subtle change. Mika Kito noticed it and sneered. Holly, Michael was very loyal to you. Even after he was caught by us, he didn't say anything bad about you. However, you pushed all the blame to him. You've gone too far. I didn't order Michael to do those things. Why should I admit it? As to whether he did it himself or not, you should ask him. Holly didn't care about Michael's feelings at all. He still insisted that it was all his fault. Mika Kito's deep eyes fell on Michael as she said coldly, Michael, how long are you going to cover for him? Are you going to atone for his crime? Let me remind you that he has no money now. He may not even be able to pay you your previous employment. Holly said loudly, Michael, be careful with your words. Don't frame me. Michael couldn't restrain himself anymore. His cold eyes suddenly turned to Holly. You don't deserve my protection. From this moment on, I'm going to fire you. He ignored Holly's shocked eyes and said sincerely, I'm sorry. I hid it from everyone. I did follow Holly's orders to instruct Peter to destroy the car and install the bomb. You're framing me, Uncle. Michael holds a grudge against me. Don't believe what he says. Holly was forced into a corner. His eyes were almost crazy. Michael straightened his chest and raised his head to face everyone's doubts. He said in a deep voice, I have evidence to prove what I said. The money paid to Peter was transferred to Mr. Holly's account in a Swiss bank. You can check his account details. I've already checked it. At some point, Mika Kito had a bank statement in his hand. He raised the statement in his hand and said, You can take a look. On the day of our car accident, there was a remittance of 1 million yuan to Peter's account. Everyone was in an uproar. It was clear who was right and who was wrong. Xiaodong's legs went weak and she almost fell. Bailey Han supported her with one hand. He felt sorry for her. This fool was always so kind and unguarded against people close to her. Mika Kito lowered his eyes and took out another statement. He said slowly, Holly, I'm very curious about this money. You once transferred 2 million yuan to a plastic surgery hospital in Korea. Why did you do that? Holly's eyes were red. He said word by word. This is my private matter. I don't need to explain it to anyone. Mika Kito's lips curled into a mocking smile. If you don't want to explain, then I'll have to find the answer myself. You transferred the money to a plastic surgery hospital in Korea because the woman you love the most is going to have a plastic surgery in Korea. Her name is... Holly looked flustered and begged with his eyes. No, don't say any more. I admit it. I admit it. Beitang Shun's thin lips were tightly pursed as he looked at the man in front of him who was pleading with him. The scene of them drinking and chatting together appeared in his mind. He had thought that they would become brothers, but Holly had ruthlessly put them to death for the sake of power. Bailey Han saw Mika Kito's hesitation. He suddenly took a step forward and said coldly, That woman is Su Yunqian. Her name is also Shui Ruyan. She once tried to kill my wife and used Barit from the Yulis family to deal with the Anya family. No, Shui Ruyan is not Su Yunqian. Holly was in a sorry state. Suzaku raised a stack of photos for everyone to see clearly. These are the photos of Su Yunqian before and after her plastic surgery. I also got the testimony of the plastic surgeon from Korea to prove that they are the same person. Holly's and Shui Ruyan's true faces were revealed in front of everyone, dripping with blood. At this time, Shui Ruyan, who was also Su Yunqian, was standing at the back of the crowd. She looked at the people who suddenly turned around and looked at her with an indescribable expression. No, I'm not. All her disguises were removed. She was on the verge of collapse. If she had known this, she wouldn't have come to the full moon banquet with Holly. No, I'm not. Su Yunqian shook her head in panic and turned around to escape. One of the guests blocked her way. She ran in another direction but was stopped by someone again. She was like a rat at the end of her rope, surrounded by everyone who pointed and mocked her. Welfare Shinwu 799. Chapter 299. Su Yinqian knew that she was done for. Holly was also done for. She slumped to the ground and raised her head to look at the indifferent faces around her. Their disdainful gazes were all too familiar to her. In a city, she was driven into a corner by all the scandals, and could only come up with the idea of faking her death, intending to change her appearance and start over again. However, she still fell into the hands of Beitang Shen. She hated it and could not accept it. Su Yunqian's tears flowed out of her eyes. A beauty was indeed a beauty. Even when she cried, she was still beautiful enough to move people's hearts. However, no one pitied her because everyone had seen through her ugly appearance. The farce ended just like that. Tomac was mentally and physically exhausted. He did not want to look at Holly and Su Yinqian anymore. He turned his back to the crowd and waved his hand. Drive them out. Holly's originally high-spirited face was stained with a layer of gray. The bodyguards dragged him and Su Yinqian out of the manor's gate. All their bank cards and credit cards were suspended. Their cars and villas were confiscated. They no longer had a place in the company. In an instant, they had gone from being billionaires to penniless paupers. Today was supposed to celebrate Hai-Hai's 1-month-old birthday, but we ended up making a fool of ourselves. Please forgive us. Tomac sincerely apologized to the guests. We're all old friends. You don't have to be so polite. That's right. Please don't take it to heart. Everyone comforted Tomac. Although the banquet was somewhat affected, fortunately, there were some guests who were good at livening up the atmosphere. Everyone soon became lively again. Bailey Han glanced at his listless wife and whispered, "Honey, you're tired. Take Hai-Hai upstairs and rest first." Xia Dong was in no mood to entertain guests because of what happened to Holly. She forced herself to cheer up and bid farewell to Tomac and Mikakito. She took her daughter from Bailey Han's arms, and the mother and daughter quietly returned to their room through the back stairs. After returning to the room, Xia Dong put the sleeping Hai-Hai into the crib and asked the nanny to take good care of her. Xia Dong unknowingly walked to the observation deck of the castle. Through the binoculars, she looked into the distance and saw Holly and Su Yinqian still hugging each other tightly at the entrance of the manor. After an unknown period of time, they finally let go of each other and left the manor hand in hand. They no longer had a car and were penniless. How were they going to leave this place? Xia Dong's mood was very complicated. She watched for a long time until the two figures completely disappeared from her sight. Then she put down the binoculars and sat on the chair in a daze. Her mind was in a mess. Holly was Su Yinqian's backer. So every time Su Yinqian hurt her, Holly knew about it, right? How could he be so cruel? On one hand, he was very gentle to her. On the other hand, he helped Su Yinqian hurt her. How could he trample on her trust in him? Xia Dong was angry and sad. She didn't know how long she had been sitting on the rooftop. It was only when Bailey Han came up that she found out that the banquet had already ended. Cece had also woken up, and the nanny was taking care of her. He thought that she had disappeared, and was so anxious that he was sweating profusely as he searched everywhere for her. "I'm sorry, honey." She lay in his arms, feeling very depressed. "Don't do this again in the future. Godfather has asked all the servants to look for you." Bailey Han kissed her forehead. "You've worried me to death. I'm sorry." She blinked and tears fell down. "I'm just not in a good mood. I want to be alone for a while." I know. Okay, don't cry. It's windy here. Let's go back to the room, okay?" His voice was gentle and warm to her hurt heart. His slender fingers wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. "Do you want to walk by yourself or do you want me to carry you?" "Carry me." She rubbed her nose, which turned pink. She stretched out her arms as if she was being shameless. "Okay, I'll carry you." He rubbed her hair and turned around. He squatted in front of her and spread his arms behind his back. "Honey, come on." She leaned against his broad back, and he held her legs with both hands. He stood up easily, and with steady steps, he slowly walked down the stairs. She wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned her head on his back. She murmured, "Honey, am I too silly?" Bailey Han's gentle voice was heard. "My wife is not silly. She's just too kind." She hugged him tightly, touched. He interrupted without any sense of beauty. "Honey, my neck is about to suffocate." She chuckled and loosened her grip on him. She could not see that the smile on his face was gentle, and there was a smile in his eyes. Holly and Su Yunqian had been walking on the road for more than an hour. Su Yunqian's feet were scraped by her high heels. She could not take it anymore. She stopped and bent down to check her injury. Holly turned to look at her. "What's wrong?" She frowned. "My feet are scraped. Let's rest for a while." Holly helped her lean against a big tree by the road. This area was a little desolate. It was very close to the road where Barit had encircled and suppressed Bailey Han. Holly was touched by the scene. He looked at the forest in the distance and said in a desolate tone, "Now I have nothing." Su Yunqian looked at his handsome side profile, and an indescribable feeling surged in her heart. She slowly hugged his arm and said gently, "You still have me, Holly. Even if the whole world abandons you, I won't abandon you." Holly hugged her tightly. His deep eyes shone with tears. "You'll suffer if you follow me." She chuckled. "I've already mentally prepared myself. When I had nothing, you were the one who saved me. Now let's rely on each other." He was very touched, but he had to remind her of the reality. "We don't have a single cent on us. We don't have a place to stay tonight either. Don't be afraid. We still have these things." Su Yunqian withdrew from his arms and took off the pearl earrings on her ears, the diamond necklace on her neck, and the ruby bracelet on her wrist. These things should be able to sell for hundreds of thousands. Holly felt sad. He looked down at his wrist, took off the gold watch on his wrist and put it in her hand. "And this watch? Actually, we still have a lot of things." Su Yunqian smiled. She didn't know if she was comforting him or herself. "Yes, the most expensive thing is you." Holly kissed her forehead gently. "Thank you for being willing to accompany me." "You're welcome." She chuckled and put all her belongings in his suit pocket. She held his hand. "Let's go. We still have to rush back to the city before it gets dark." They couldn't possibly spend the night in the wilderness. Suddenly, a car drove over. Holly waved his arms, hoping that the other party would give them a ride. He didn't expect the other party to have no intention of stopping at all. He stepped on the accelerator and sped past. Another car drove over. Holly shouted, "Please stop the car." The car slowed down. Holly happily held Su Yunqian's hand and ran over. The car window rolled down, and a familiar face popped out. It was the head of the Phil family, Sam. Holly was stunned for a moment, then he smiled. "Uncle Sam, can we take your car back to the city?" "I'm sorry, Holly." Sam rejected him without hesitation. "Uncle Sam. Driver, drive." The car sped away. Holly tightened his grip on Su Yunqian's hand, and his expression was terrible. Su Yunqian looked at him worriedly. "Darling, it's okay. We can walk back." Holly shook his head and muttered, "You don't understand. The old man has really made up his mind. Even Sam won't help me. No one else will dare to help me." He was right. They met many guests coming out of the castle along the way. When they saw Holly waving his hand to stop the car, they didn't have any intention of stopping. It was as if they didn't see them. They spent more than an hour and finally reached the suburbs. There were 2 big blisters on Su Yunqian's heels. Holly helped her stand by the roadside. It wasn't easy for them to hail a very old car. The driver was an honest middle-aged man. When he saw that they were dressed extravagantly but looked very haggard, he thought that they had encountered a gangster. Su Yunqian made use of his sympathy to admit that they had encountered a gangster. "Sir, can I trouble you to send us to the city?" "Of course. I happen to be going to the city too." The driver was kind and agreed to take them to the place they had mentioned. There were many antique shops in the area where they got off the car. Su Yunqian asked for Holly's opinion and sold the pair of pearl earrings for 10,000 euros. The two rented an apartment. It wasn't very big. It had 2 bedrooms and 1 living room. However, it was fully furnished and the surrounding environment was good. They couldn't ask for too much when they were short of money. The other jewelry was sold for a total of 500,000 euros, which was not a small amount for the 2 of them. However, the 2 of them were used to living a luxurious life and suddenly became poor. They couldn't adapt for a while and spent money like usual. It wasn't until a week later that they suddenly realized that they only had 300,000 euros left in their savings. Su Yinqian was cooking in an LV dress. She put 2 breakfasts on the table and said, "Darling, we can't just sit around and eat. I'll go out and look for a job." In the past week, Holly went to many companies and submitted a lot of resumes, but they were all rejected. There was no other reason. His job requirements were all at the level of deputy general manager. Finally, a small company was willing to hire him. However, the personnel department received a call from the Castle of the Night and rejected him again. Holly held the knife and fork with both hands and was silent for a long time. "Darling, I'm sorry. I can't give you anything now." "It doesn't matter." Su Yinqian hugged him from behind and said softly, "In fact, I have nothing to do at home every day. It's better to go out and look for a job. It won't be too boring." Ad. Hongcha 866. Chapter 300. Holly knew that she was only saying that to comfort him and to protect his self-esteem. He was very touched. He got up and hugged her tightly. His voice was hoarse as he said, "Baby, give me 2 years. I'll definitely let you live a life of high society again." "I know. I believe in you." Su Yinqian raised her head and kissed the corner of his lips. Her smile was warm. He hugged her tightly. After the 2 of them finished breakfast, Holly went out to look for a job with a briefcase in his hand. Su Yinqian stood at the entrance and helped him tie his tie. He gave her a goodbye kiss. She smiled and waved. "Darling, be careful on the road." After sending Holly off, Su Yinqian stood at the small kitchen door and looked at the pots and pans in the sink. Her expression was a little dazed. After a while, she slowly squatted down, covered her face with her hands and wailed. Holly walked downstairs and realized that he had forgotten to bring his phone. He went upstairs to get his phone. After opening the door with the key, he heard Su Yinqian's sad cries. His footsteps froze. He didn't continue walking. Instead, he slowly walked out of the room and gently locked the door. He leaned against the wall and clenched his fists tightly. He thought that she was very strong, but he didn't know that she was always secretly crying behind his back. When he was at his lowest point, she still supported him without hesitation and accompanied him. She really loved him, but he couldn't abandon his ridiculous self-esteem. He angrily punched the wall. Finally, a determined expression appeared on his handsome face. He was no longer alone. He couldn't be willful anymore. He had to think of a way for the 2 of them to survive. Holly interviewed for 2 more companies, but he still didn't succeed. After walking out of the company, he tore up all his resumes and threw them into the trash can. He drove a newly bought second-hand car around the city and found a construction site. There were many workers busy at the site. There was also a fat man who looked like a supervisor wearing a hard hat looking around. "Hey, you're not allowed to park here. Get out of the way." The security guard at the site saw Holly's car and ordered him to drive away. Holly looked at the security guard and asked, "How much is your monthly salary?" The security guard thought that he was mocking him and was very annoyed. "I said, if you don't leave, I'll call the police. Hurry up and leave." Holly's face sank. If someone dared to talk to him like this in the past, he would definitely teach that person a lesson. But now he tried to suppress his anger and said, "I think you misunderstood. What I mean is that I need a job." The security guard looked at him suspiciously. "If I'm not mistaken, the clothes you're wearing are very expensive. Are you sure you're not joking?" Will looked at him with sincere eyes. "It's true. My company went bankrupt, so I need a job urgently." The security guard pointed at the empty space next to him. "Park your car over there first, then come and find me." "Okay, thank you." Holly followed the security guard's instructions and parked the car across the road. Then he went to the security booth to find the security guard. The security guard put on his hat and said, "Come with me. I'm an old friend of the supervisor here. He said 2 days ago that he needed to recruit a construction worker. If you can bear the hardships, you can give it a try." "Okay, no problem. By the way, what's your name?" "Holly." The security guard took Holly to the fat supervisor. "Gary, this guy named Holly wants to find a job. Aren't you short of people? What do you think of him? Gary looked Holly up and down and narrowed his small eyes. Young man, are you really going to work at a construction site? This is a very hard job. I think you're more suited to work in an office. I'm not afraid of hard work. I want to support my family. Gary nodded. Well, you can try to work for a week. If there's no problem, I'll hire you. You'll work 8 hours a day, 25 euros per hour, and your salary will be paid daily. When you become a regular worker, your salary will be raised to 30 euros per hour. We'll also buy you insurance, and you can enjoy the welfare policy. Holly nodded. I understand. Can I start working now? Yes. Hey Chester, come over here. Gary shouted at the top of his voice. A tall, thin black man ran over. Gary, what's the matter? Chester, this is the new Holly. Take care of him. Be careful. No problem. Chester reached out his hand. Hello, Holly. Welcome. Holly looked at his hands that were covered with lime. He hesitated for a moment and politely shook his hand. Hello, Chester. Well, now I'll take you to work. Holly and Chester walked away. The security guard looked at their backs and said, Gary, I didn't expect you to hire him so easily. Gary pressed down on his helmet and said, I didn't expect him to come to my site either. The security guard was surprised. You know him? Gary shrugged. I guess that all the bosses in Rome know him now. The Dark Knight family has already sent his photo to us. Why? Is he wanted by the Dark Knight family? Idiot, he's Tomac's nephew, but Tomac has cut ties with him. Tomac told all the big companies in Rome that they are not allowed to apply for Holly. Then you're in trouble. Tomac only forbade big companies from applying for him. Of course, our small site is different. What's more, he's not applying for an executive position, but for a construction worker at the bottom. This is allowed. That's strange. Does Tomac want to shut Holly out or help him? Gary shrugged. On the surface, he's shutting him out, but in fact he's helping him. A proud person like him can only grow up after experiencing setbacks, and putting him at the bottom. So that's how it is. Tomac has really put a lot of thought into this. I hope that guy lives up to Tomac's efforts. With the help of Chester, Holly began to familiarize himself with his work. It was all physical work and very dirty. He couldn't help but want to run away several times. But when he thought of Su Yunxian's painful look, he gave up the idea of running away. On the other hand, Su Yunxian also began to look for a job. She browsed a lot of job postings on the internet and in newspapers. But when she called, she was turned down. She intended to use her skills to visit many antique shops and auction companies, but no one was willing to hire her. She really understood the pain and humiliation that Holly suffered when he was looking for a job. She carried her handbag and walked on the busy street. Looking at the hurried crowd, she suddenly felt very tired. Since she was a child, she had been a proud daughter of a rich family. She had lived a rich life and had never worried about money. But now, she had to restrain her desire to buy things. She had to calculate how to save money. When she applied for a job, she also had to face the doubts and disdain of those people. She had had enough. She walked into a high-end coffee shop. This coffee shop was located in the Plaza de España. It had a history of hundreds of years. The decoration was elegant. There were expensive paintings hanging on both sides of the corridor. The quiet atmosphere and rich historical background attracted a lot of customers. Su Yunxian sat on the dark red velvet sofa and ordered the most expensive coffee. Holding the coffee cup, her fingers were trembling. She was struggling in her heart. Should she leave Holly? Could she really leave him? She didn't expect to meet the two people she didn't want to see the most at this time. Honey, how's the environment here? Do you like it? Yes, it's very beautiful. Hubby, you're amazing. You found such a great place. It was Bailey Han and Xiaodong. He was wearing an Italian handmade suit and looked handsome. She was wearing a red dress and looked beautiful and charming. The two of them were holding hands and smiling at each other. What a loving couple. Su Yunxian held the coffee cup tightly in her right hand. Her eyes were like sharp knives as she stared at the two people walking towards her. Bailey Han sensed the gaze from the side. He turned his head and saw Su Yunxian's frosty face. The smile on his handsome face gradually froze. Xiaodong also saw it, and was slightly stunned. Huai smiled faintly. In her eyes, Su Yunqian was like a tiger with its teeth pulled out. There was no need to fear her. But in Su Yunqian's eyes, her smile turned into mockery. Su Yunqian put down the coffee cup and stood up. She raised her head proudly and slowly walked in front of the two of them. She looked at Bailey Han and asked, "When you heard the news of my death, were you sad at all?" She had always wanted to ask him this question. Bailey Han said faintly, "No, you're not worth it." Su Yunqian's expression changed, and her eyes were filled with hatred. "I gave up everything for you, but all I got in return is not worth it." "Bailey Han, do you have a heart?" "Yes." Bailey Han's gaze fell on Xiaodong, and the corners of his lips curled up warmly. "My heart is with my wife. As for your life and death, I don't care at all, Bailey Han." Su Yunqian's beautiful face was distorted with anger. She raised her arm and slapped his handsome face. A hand grabbed her wrist. It was Xiaodong. Xiaodong laughed coldly. "Su Yunqian, do you think I'm dead? How dare you hit my man?" She grabbed Su Yunqian's wrist and pushed it hard. Su Yunqian staggered back and almost fell. As she retreated, she bumped into the waiter who was holding a tray, and the cup of hot coffee splashed all over her back. "Ah!" she screamed miserably. The skin on her back was in excruciating pain. I'm very sorry, Mississippi. Please come with me to the changing room to treat your burns." The waiter, who was wearing a tuxedo, had undergone strict training, and was not flustered in the face of danger. He invited her politely. Su Yunqian pushed the waiter away and rushed in front of Xiaodong. She shouted angrily, "Xiaodong, you be *tch." Before she could finish scolding, Xiaodong suddenly raised her hand and slapped her hard on the face. Slap. Everyone was stunned, and they turned their shocked and curious gazes over, including Su Yunqian. She covered her face in shock. Xiaodong slowly retracted her hand. She looked down and moved her wrist. Her expression was nonchalant. "Su Yunqian, I've wanted to hit you for a long time. Today, I finally got my wish." As she said that, she suddenly raised her head and stared sharply at Su Yunqian. "You think you love Ahan, but you're wrong. You don't love him as a person. You love his looks, family background, power, and status. For his halo, you didn't hesitate to hurt others, hurt yourself, and hurt your family. Su Yunqian, you're too selfish. In your heart, there's no one else but yourself. People like you don't deserve the word love." "No, you don't know anything. I love him. I love him as a person," Su Yunqian shouted hysterically. "If you really loved him, you wouldn't have lied to him. You wouldn't have hurt his family. You wouldn't have used your life to threaten him. You wouldn't have destroyed his happy family." Xiaodong's every word was powerful and aggressive. Her eyes were cold and ruthless. She stripped Su Yunqian of her pretense in front of everyone. "No, it's not like that." Su Yunqian still wanted to pester her, but Bailey Han looked at her coldly. It was as if he was looking at a stray animal by the roadside. "Su Yunqian, we've already cut off all ties. If you pester me or my family again, I won't let you off." "Ahan. Hubby, let's go. There's someone I don't like here. No matter how good the environment is, my mood will get worse." "Wifey, you're right." Xiaodong held Bailey Han's arm. The two of them didn't even look at Su Yunqian as they turned and walked out of her sight. Su Yunqian stood there in a daze. The skin on her back was burning with pain, reminding her of how pathetic she looked now. The waiter took a few steps forward and said politely, "Miss, please follow me." Su Yunqian followed behind him in a daze and walked into the dressing room. After a while, a waitress came in with a medicine box and helped her deal with the burns on her back. "Miss, your clothes are dirty. Do you want to call your friend to send some clothes over?" "No, thank you." Su Yunqian refused her kindness. She put on the dirty dress again, raised her chin, and walked out of the cafe step by step to maintain her dignity. When Holly returned home, Su Yunqian was preparing dinner in the kitchen. "Baby, I'm back." Holly walked behind her and hugged her from behind with one hand. Her body trembled and she made a weak sound. "What's wrong?" Holly turned her shoulder with concern. Su Yinqian smiled reluctantly. I'm fine. Did everything go well today? Holly's attention was successfully diverted by her. A bright smile appeared on his face. I found a job. Look, this is my gift to you. He stretched out his left hand that was hidden behind his back. A bouquet of beautiful roses bloomed in his hand, emitting a fragrant scent. Her eyes were a little moist. Her fingers trembled as she took the roses. She mumbled. Did it cost a lot? Ad. Hongcha 866. Chapter 301. Holly felt a little sad. He hugged her and kissed her forehead. Don't worry. I got my salary today. She looked up at him and asked with concern. What's your job? An ordinary company employee. It's a small company, so my salary is paid daily. Really? Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you? He smiled and said. I'm going to take a shower first. Thank you for your hard work, baby. Okay, go ahead. Su Yinqian heard the sound of the bathroom door closing. She carried the roses to the living room and put them in a vase. Looking at the delicate flowers, the corners of her lips slowly curled up. They were like an ordinary couple. After dinner, they sat on the sofa and watched TV. At first, they were still watching and chatting, but in the end, when she didn't hear his response, she turned around and saw that he had fallen asleep on the sofa. Su Yinqian wanted to wake him up, but when she saw his frown, she closed her mouth again. She took a blanket from the bedroom and covered him with it. It was only 9 o'clock. For them who were used to the nightlife, it seemed a little early to go to bed. The TV program was very boring, and she didn't want to watch it anymore. She took her clothes to the bathroom to take a shower. After taking off her clothes, she turned her back to the mirror and tried to look at her back. There was a palm-sized burn on her back, and her skin was red. The hot water poured on the wound, and it hurt. She gritted her teeth and endured the pain. After taking a shower, she returned to the living room and sat beside Holly. She stared at him while drying her hair. He had a very handsome face, a high nose bridge, and deep eye sockets. Those eyes were especially charming. His brows were knitted together, and he seemed to have a lot on his mind. She sighed softly. So be it. At least he still loved her. She reached out and rubbed the wrinkles between his brows. He suddenly opened his eyes and sat up slowly. How did I fall asleep? Is the TV show over? Su Yinqian smiled. You're too tired. Go back to the room and sleep. He smiled mischievously. Okay, I'll go back first and wait for you on the bed. She pursed her lips and didn't say anything. She deliberately dawdled for a long time. Thinking that he had fallen asleep, she walked into the bedroom. Unexpectedly, as soon as she pulled the blanket away, he pulled her into his arms. His eyes opened slightly and with a hazy sleepiness he asked, Why did you take so long? My hair is just drying now, she lied casually. He suddenly hugged her tightly, his hands caressing her back. His hand happened to touch her wound. It hurt so much that she trembled. What's wrong? Holly finally realized that something was wrong and sat up. Take off your clothes. No, I'm already very tired. Su Yinqian clutched the collar of her pajamas tightly. Let me see. Be good. Holly realized that she seemed to be hiding something. He grabbed her clothes and pulled them up bit by bit. There was a patch of red skin on her back, and there were even some small blisters. His eyes narrowed. What's going on? How did you get hurt? I accidentally scalded myself. I was afraid that you would be angry, so I didn't dare to tell you. She bit her lip and avoided his angry eyes. Idiot, why didn't you treat your injury? It's okay. It's just a small injury. I've already applied medicine. He ordered coldly. The wound is already blistered. Don't tear it. Be careful of infection. Give me the ointment. Okay. She took out a small tube of ointment from the bedside drawer and placed it on his palm. He lowered his head and gently applied the ointment for her. Even though he was already very careful, she still trembled in pain. After applying the ointment, he took off her pajamas. Don't wear clothes. Otherwise, the fabric will rub against your back, and it will be easy to get infected. Oh, she said. She covered her chest with both hands, and was a little embarrassed. Lie down facing me. She lay down facing him. His right arm was around her waist, and he used his arm to support the quilt behind her to prevent the quilt from rubbing against her wound. He was bare-chested and wore a pair of boxer shorts. She was also bare-chested and wore a pair of laces underwear. The two of them were facing each other naked. He shifted his body and pressed against her. Her softness was pressed against his chest. Although they had been more intimate than this was the first time Su Yinqian felt her heart race. She nervously closed her eyes. She felt his burning gaze intertwining on her body. Then he lowered his head and kissed her forehead. His voice was hoarse and full of love. "Good night, baby. Good night." She opened her eyes and kissed him on the lips. The next morning, she woke up in his arms. His hand was still around her waist. She felt that her back was empty, and the quilt didn't rub against her wound. She didn't expect that he would maintain this position for the entire night. Su Yinqian felt an inexplicable feeling in her heart. It was very warm and comforting. "Good morning, baby." He opened his eyes, and his light blue eyes were filled with smiles. "Good morning, darling." She smiled sweetly. "I'll go make breakfast. You can sleep for a while. Does your wound still hurt?" "It doesn't hurt anymore. Let me take a look." He lifted the quilt, and her beautiful figure was completely exposed in front of him. She was a little embarrassed, but he didn't care. He held her waist and back and observed for a moment. "It looks like it's a little better. Let me apply some medicine for you." He disinfected the wound with alcohol and applied medicine. After the two of them washed up, she fried eggs and he helped to cut the ham. Su Yinqian watched him holding the knife and shook her head with a smile. "Darling, I'm really worried that you'll cut your finger." "Why would I? I'm best at using a knife." She burst into laughter. "Are you sure you're good at using a knife, not killing people?" He shrugged. "Killing people is the same as cutting vegetables." She shuddered. "Stop talking. It's so disgusting. I won't eat ham later." He laughed out loud. Holly wore a suit and leather shoes and carried his briefcase to work. In fact, he didn't need to wear a suit at the construction site, but in order to not arouse Su Yinqian's suspicion, he had to wear it. Su Yinqian tidied up the kitchen and planned to wash Holly's dirty clothes. She found that there was a lot of mud on his trousers. She thought that he had accidentally gotten it on when he walked and didn't care. However, as he became more and more tired after work every day, and the mud on his trousers never disappeared, she began to feel suspicious. After dinner that day, she leaned in his arms and asked, "Darling, is your work very hard? You look very tired when you come home every day." "Yes, it's very hard. You know, I've never worked hard before. Now I realize that work is so hard." She was thoughtful. "Where's your company? Let's have lunch together tomorrow, okay?" He stroked her hair. "My company is very small, and it's very far from home. I don't want you to work so hard and come to my place." "Okay then, I'll cook Chinese food for you tomorrow night. Remember to come back early." "Okay, I'll come back early." Su Yinqian knew very well that he was hiding something from her. Holly had to go to work. As soon as he left, Su Yinqian secretly followed him. She saw him drive out of the street and hurriedly waved for a taxi. After getting in, she immediately told the driver to follow Holly's car. In the meantime, the taxi encountered a red light. When the light turned green, Holly's car was long gone. "Sorry, we lost him," the driver said apologetically. Su Yinqian was a little discouraged. "Forget it. Let's stop by the side." After failing to follow him the first time, Su Yinqian followed him a second time. This time, because the taxi driver followed too closely, Holly seemed to realize that someone was following him. He deliberately led them around and lost them. For the third time, Su Yinqian simply put a small tracker in the trunk of his car. She asked the taxi driver to follow the route shown by the tracker and finally found Holly's destination. However, Su Yinqian wasn't happy at all. In fact, she was in a terrible mood. She stood outside the construction site and saw many people in work clothes busy. Many of their trousers were stained with mud and sand. She finally knew what Holly was doing. Su Yinqian thought that she wouldn't cry for any man again. But she couldn't control herself and tears flowed down like an open tap. The passers-by on the road noticed her abnormality and looked at her curiously. As if she didn't see them, She covered her mouth with both hands and cried bitterly. Her actions finally attracted the concern of a stranger. "Miss, are you okay?" Su Yinqian shook her head and the man handed her a handkerchief. "Thank you." She took the handkerchief and wiped the tears on her face. She gradually controlled her emotions and looked at the busy workers in the distance. She didn't see Holly, but she knew that he was one of them. She bit her lip and turned to leave. The man who handed her the handkerchief suddenly said, "Miss, do you need me to give you a ride?" Su Yinqian turned to look at him. She finally saw his face clearly. He was in his 40s, wearing a suit and leather shoes. He was handsome and had the charm of a mature man. He had a kind smile on his face. "Don't misunderstand. I can see that you're not in a good mood. So you're worried that I'll do something to hurt myself?" Su Yinqian smiled sarcastically. "So I look so pathetic? That's not what I meant." The man smiled helplessly. "I'm sorry. I don't seem to be very good at comforting people." Su Yinqian smiled. "It's okay. I'm being too sensitive." She raised the handkerchief in her hand. "Thank you for the handkerchief. Goodbye." The man smiled. "If you don't mind, I'll give you a ride. Take it as my apology." Awesome novel Hongcha 866. Chapter 302. Su Yinqian followed his gaze and saw his car parked not far away. It was a Rolls-Royce. She lowered her eyes and smiled faintly. "All right then. Thank you for your trouble. This way, please." After they got into the car, the man handed her a business card. "My name is Paul. May I know your name?" "Shui Ruyan." Su Yinqian glanced at the business card. It was the CEO of UWI Construction Company. As far as she knew, UWI was one of the top construction companies in Italy. Her eyes flickered slightly. Paul said as he drove, "Miss Shui, where do you live?" "I'll get off at the square. Sorry to trouble you." More than half an hour later, the car stopped at the place Su Yinqian mentioned. Paul opened the door for her like a gentleman. "Miss Shui, it's nice to meet you. I hope we'll have a chance to meet again in the future." "Nice to meet you too, Mr. Paul." The two smiled and parted ways. The Rolls-Royce disappeared from her sight. Su Yinqian looked at the business card in her hand and smiled. She put the business card into her handbag. The square was not far from where she lived. She walked to the nearest supermarket and bought a large bag of vegetables, fruits, and supplements. In the afternoon, Su Yinqian was busy in the kitchen. She planned to make braised fish. She took the fish out of the fridge and opened the fresh-keeping bag. A strong fishy smell assailed her nose. Her stomach churned. She quickly covered her mouth and ran to the bathroom to vomit on the toilet. After vomiting, she had no energy left. Looking at herself in the mirror, Su Yinqian had a bad feeling. It seemed that she had not had her period for more than a month. Could she be pregnant? The more she thought about it, the more nervous she became. She immediately changed her clothes, took her wallet and went downstairs to the nearest supermarket to buy a pregnancy test. She held the pregnancy test and did not dare to test it for a long time. Suddenly, she heard the sound of the door lock. Holly had returned. She did not expect that she would hesitate and struggle for more than an hour. Su Yinqian quickly stuffed the pregnancy test under the sofa cushion and walked into the kitchen. She covered her mouth and nose and continued to cook braised fish. "Baby, I'm back." Holly's tall figure appeared at the kitchen door. He had a bright smile on his face and a bottle of red wine in his hand. "We can spend a romantic night together." In fact, he had become a regular worker today and his salary had increased. He wanted to celebrate. Su Yinqian smiled and said, "Darling, you're back. The food will be ready soon. You can take a bath first." Holly leaned over and kissed her on the cheek and said, "Good." Su Yinqian placed the braised fish in front of him and sat opposite him, away from the fishy smell. During the meal, she did not touch the braised fish at all. Holly was a little surprised. "Baby, don't you like fish very much? Why aren't you eating today?" "My stomach is a little uncomfortable. The smell of fish makes me sick." Su Yinqian fanned her nose exaggeratedly. He put down his chopsticks. "Are you all right?" "It's okay. I've already gone to the hospital for a checkup. There's no problem. As long as you pay attention to your diet, you'll get better. Why didn't you say so earlier? Don't drink the red wine anymore. He took away the wine glass in front of her. You're not feeling well tonight. Rest early. I'll clean the kitchen. Su Yinxian smiled. When did you learn how to do housework? Why didn't I know? Holly walked to her side and hugged her. His voice was a little low. If you can learn, I can too. She used to be with him and was used to living a good life. There were many servants to serve her, even if she was in the mood to cook for him occasionally. She had never washed the dishes or mopped the floor, but now she was doing all these things very well. Every time Holly felt that the work was hard and difficult to persevere, he would think of the pain she had suffered and then have the motivation to persevere. He kissed her earlobe and said softly, "None of the friends who used to call me brothers helped me when I was in trouble. None of the women who used to say that they loved me were willing to have anything to do with me. Only you were willing to accompany me at this time. Sometimes, I can't help but thank disaster. It made me realize what a great woman I have." Su Yinxian leaned into his arms, her eyes drooping slightly to hide the tears inside. "Baby, I swear that our bitter days are only temporary. I will think of a way to make a comeback. I know, I believe you." Her voice was a little choked up. "All right, you're not feeling well. Go rest first." He rubbed her hair. Su Yinxian lay on the bed, listening to the crisp sound of cups and bowls colliding in the kitchen. She felt a little frustrated. She felt that the development of the situation was getting further and further away from the path she had expected. After thinking for a long time, she decided to find out if she was pregnant or not. After Holly went to work, she took a pregnancy test and found that she was really pregnant. At that moment, she was about to break down. Ring, ring, ring. The landline in the living room rang. Su Yinxian took a deep breath. "Hello, who is this?" "Hello, is this Miss Shui? I'm Paul. Do you remember me?" A man's magnetic voice came from the phone. Su Yinxian said coldly, "Mr. Paul, how do you know my phone number?" "Through the phone, Miss Shui. Ever since we met yesterday, I've been thinking about you. Do you have time? I'd like to treat you to a cup of coffee." "Sorry, I'm busy. I don't have time." "When do you have time?" Su Yinxian frowned. "Mr. Paul, I want to remind you that I already have a boyfriend." "I know, and I also know that his name is Holly. He's been banned by the Dark Knight family." Paul's voice was ambiguous. "There's no need for a beauty like you to continue living a hard life with him. If you change your mind, you can contact me at any time." After ending the call, Su Yinxian leaned against the sofa. She looked at the pregnancy test on the tea table and covered her face with her hands. Her thin shoulders trembled and tears slowly flowed down from between her fingers. At the construction site, a man in a hard hat and overalls was standing on a high steel frame. A safety rope was tied around his waist, and he was working high up. Even though it was far away, Su Yinxian recognized that it was Holly. In the past few days, she had secretly come to the construction site to see him every day and learned about his work. In short, he did all the dirty and tiring work on the construction site, and sometimes he did some very dangerous work. In order not to be discovered by him, she wore big sunglasses, a t-shirt, torn jeans and a pair of sneakers. In short, even if he found her, he would never recognize her. "Miss, it's very dangerous here. Please don't stay here." A security guard came over to remind Su Yinxian. "Got it. I'll leave right away." Su Yinxian looked sideways at Holly, who was working high up in the air, and then turned to leave. Gradually, a decision came to her mind. "Miss Shui, we meet again." A Rolls-Royce suddenly stopped beside Su Yinxian. The door opened, and Paul's tall figure appeared in front of her. She nodded politely. "Mr. Paul." Paul smiled. "You're dressed very special today. If you hadn't taken off your glasses just now, I wouldn't have recognized you." Su Yinxian pursed her lips. "You seem to be here all the time." Paul shrugged and laughed exaggeratedly. "You don't think I'm following you, do you? In fact, I'm talking about a project with this construction company." He raised his chin at the construction site where Holly was. "Do you, the CEO, need to talk about a project in person?" Su Yinxian looked suspicious. Paul raised his eyebrows and spread his hands. It can't be helped. Although this construction company is small, the boss is very stubborn. We've been talking about the acquisition for nearly half a month, but we still haven't succeeded. Su Yunqian's eyes flickered. You're planning to acquire this company? Yes. If the acquisition is successful, we might have to fire some of the employees. Paul pointed out. Su Yunqian's fingernails dug into her palms. She had a faint smile on her face. Mr. Paul, if you have something to say, just say it. Paul smiled and said, Miss Shui is very smart. I don't think I need to make it too clear. Are you going home? Shall I give you a ride? Su Yunqian quietly looked into his deep eyes. It was a pair of shrewd and scheming eyes. She slowly curled her lips and chuckled. All right, thank you for your trouble. You're welcome. Please get in the car. Paul opened the car door and made an inviting gesture. After driving for half an hour, Su Yunqian realized that the route wasn't right. She turned around and asked Paul, This isn't my way home. Where are we going? I'll take you to a place. We can also have a cup of coffee on the way. Su Yunqian frowned. Mr. Paul, have you always been so assertive? No, I'm only like this for you. Paul looked at her seriously, his eyes flashing with passion. Ruyan, do you believe in love at first sight? An elegant and perfect woman like you definitely won't believe in such a vulgar plot. However, it did happen, so please listen carefully. I've never loved someone so deeply until I met you. Su Yunqian was slightly stunned and smiled. As you said, I don't believe in love at first sight. I'll make you believe it. Paul smiled confidently. They had arrived at their destination. Su Yunqian looked through the car window and saw a jewelry store opposite. She pursed her lips. Why did you bring me here? You'll know soon. Su Yunqian didn't know what Paul was up to. She followed him into the jewelry store. The store manager immediately greeted them. Mr. Paul, welcome, welcome. Looking at the situation, the two of them seemed to be very familiar with each other. Paul introduced, Ruyan, this is Charles. Charles, this is my friend Shui Ruyan. Hello, Miss Shui. I'm the store manager here. It's my honor to serve the two of you. Paul smiled. Charles, I'm here to pick up that thing. Okay, please follow me. Charles led them to the VIP room. A clerk served them coffee. Charles said, Please wait for a moment. I'll go get that thing now. Okay. Su Yunqian sat on the expensive leather sofa. Paul kept staring at her. That kind of gaze made her a little uneasy. She pretended to take a sip of the coffee. He suddenly said, I've never seen a woman as confident as you. Even if you're wearing inappropriate clothes, you're still so calm and composed. You don't even have any sense of embarrassment. You even make the onlookers have the illusion that they're wearing the wrong clothes. Su Yunqian raised her eyebrows and faintly said, Why do I feel that your words seem to be reminding me that my current attire is not suitable for this place? Paul helplessly smiled. It must be your misconception. I'm obviously praising you. Ruyan, if my previous words have offended you, I apologize to you. Please let down your guard against me, okay? Su Yunqian put the coffee cup on the table and faintly smiled. I'm sorry. After going through so many things, I've put thorns all over my body because I don't want to get hurt again. Paul stared into her eyes and said sincerely, I've heard about the things between you and Holly. I can tell you frankly that I have nothing to do with the Dark Knight family, and I won't do anything for them. The only reason I approach you is because I love you. Su Yunqian quietly stared at him, as if she was considering the truth of his words. After a long while, her lips curved into a smile. That kind of smile was different from a polite smile. It was a very sincere smile. Thank you. Paul also smiled. When he was about to say something, the store manager, Charles, came in with a red velvet box in his hand. Sorry to keep you waiting. Charles opened the box. A very beautiful emerald pearl necklace lay inside. Charles introduced, Mr. Paul, this is the necklace you asked us to look for. It used to be Queen Mary's favorite. Charles, thank you. Paul reached out and shook Charles's hand. You're welcome. The two came out of the jewelry store. Paul drove to a high-end coffee shop. The two sat in the elegant coffee shop. Paul put the red velvet box in front of Su Yinxian. Ruyan, when I first saw you, I felt that this necklace was very suitable for you. Su Yinxian used to be an antique appraiser. She was very clear about the value of this necklace. It was worth at least $3 million. Even for her, who used to be rich, this was not a small amount. She calmly refused. Mr. Paul, this gift is too expensive. I can't accept it. Well, I'll keep it. I think one day, you'll be willing to accept it. He was very confident. Su Yinxian smiled but did not say a word. The two talked happily. During the conversation, Su Yinxian moderately showed her knowledge and accomplishment. Paul's impression of her was getting better and better. Su Yinxian also saw his maturity, wisdom, and humor. She gradually let down her guard against him. When they parted, Paul hugged her like a friend. She didn't refuse. Come and see. Hongcha 866. Chapter 303. In the following week, Paul was like an old friend. He often called Su Yinxian and asked her out for coffee or dinner. She would occasionally accept his kind intentions. They had a lot in common and had a lot to talk about. He even revealed his personal feelings to her. He told her that he was married and had a son and a daughter with his ex-wife. He also said that he loved her and wanted to marry her. She just laughed it off and didn't seem to take it to heart. On the other hand, Su Yinxian was very hesitant. She didn't know if she should tell Holly about her pregnancy. She finally made up her mind, but when she really faced him, she asked, "Darling, do you like children?" Holly lazily laid on the sofa and pulled her into his embrace. "I don't really like it. Kids are noisy and annoying. But if it's an obedient and cute child like Xiao Guai, it's a different story." Su Yinxian's expression changed, and her fingers suddenly grasped his arm. Holly said regretfully, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have mentioned them." Su Yinxian forced a smile. "It's okay." Actually, she wasn't upset because he mentioned Xiao Guai, but because he didn't seem to like children. Holly stroked her long hair and said gently, "Why are you suddenly asking me this question?" She smiled. "Darling, how about we have a child?" Holly's movements froze. His expression became uncomfortable, and his eyes were filled with struggle and hesitation. Su Yinxian waited for his answer and clenched her fingers nervously. His sexy lips pursed and he said slowly, "Baby, our current situation is a little bad. I think it's not suitable to raise a child for the time being." Su Yinxian was stunned. She forced a smile and hid the pain in her eyes. "Yes, you're right. It's not suitable to have a child now." He hugged her tightly and kissed her hair. "Baby, give me 2 years. I'll let us live a prosperous life again. When that time comes, we'll have a child, okay?" This was probably the first time he had asked her for her opinion, but she wasn't happy at all. She loved the child in her belly and wanted to give birth to a child, but she had to admit that Holly was right. They weren't in the condition to raise a child now. They didn't even have the right to be parents. Su Yinxian held back the tears in her eyes and nodded. "Okay, we'll have a child in the future." He stroked her back and nibbled her earlobe. "It's time to rest. I'll carry you back to the room." How could Su Yinxian not understand the meaning of his words? She quickly sat up in his arms. "Darling, I'm on my period today. It's not convenient." "Okay, we haven't had sex in a long time." He looked a little annoyed and carried her. "Looks like I'll have to endure for a few more days." Ever since Su Yinxian found out that she was pregnant, she had been using all kinds of excuses to reject his advances. Fortunately, he worked hard and his needs weren't as strong as before. The number of times she rejected him wasn't that many, so it didn't arouse his suspicions. Su Yinxian went to the hospital alone and sat in the corridor of the obstetrics and gynecology department. She saw many pregnant women doing prenatal checkups with their husbands and suddenly felt envious. She used to think that women who sacrificed everything for their families were ridiculous, but now that she was pregnant, she had the idea of being a good wife and mother. "Miss Xue, it's your turn. Please come with me." The nurse interrupted Su Yinxian's thoughts and led her into the operating room. "Miss Xue, I've looked at the checklist. The child is developing very well. Are you sure you want to abort the child? The doctor confirmed again before she lay on the operating bed. Su Yinxian clenched her fists and took a deep breath. Then she slowly exhaled. Yes. Please lie on the operating bed. The doctor was ready. He held the anesthetic in his hand. Relax. I'm going to inject you with the anesthetic. The cold liquid was injected into her body. She felt herself stiffen and couldn't move her fingers. However, her eyes were still open and she tried hard to look at the figure in front of her. Someone separated her legs, and an ice-cold instrument reached into her lower body. A huge sense of fear surged like a tide. She tried hard to open her mouth and shouted with the last of her strength, "Stop." 10 minutes later, Su Yinxian sat on the sofa in the corridor with a pale face. The anesthetic had worn off, but she still felt that her feet couldn't move. She took out her phone and dialed a number. It's me. Do you have time now? Half an hour later, Paul's tall figure appeared at the end of the corridor. He walked quickly to her side with an anxious look on his face. What's the matter? Are you sick? Su Yinxian looked at him in a daze. Her face was pale and she looked terrible. What's the matter? Paul grabbed her shoulders nervously. Ruyan, tell me. Her eyelashes fluttered and a tear rolled down. She asked in a trembling voice. Paul, do you still mean what you said? Yes, it all counts. Paul held her shoulders tightly and looked very determined. If you want to get married, we can register tomorrow. Su Yunxian's vision was blurred by tears. But, I'm pregnant. Paul froze and there was a look of disbelief on his face. She smiled bitterly. I don't want to give up the child. Paul's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He pursed his lips and didn't say a word. Forget it. Just take it that I didn't ask anything. She pushed his hand away slowly and said softly, Send me back. She stood up and walked forward slowly. Her back view looked so weak and helpless. Paul suddenly said loudly, It's okay. Su Yinxian turned around stiffly. He had already run to her and hugged her tightly in his arms. His voice was urgent. It's okay. I don't mind. When the child is born, I'll treat him as my own. I'll love him and dote on him. You know that I have 2 children with my ex-wife. Don't mind, okay? She stood there stiffly for a long time before she finally reached out and wrapped her arms around his waist. Okay, she said softly. He held her face and moved closer to her. She didn't push him away like before, but closed her eyes. He kissed the corner of her lips and said softly, When will you move to my place? Let me take care of you. She looked down and said softly, Give me a few days. Okay, I'll wait for you. That night, Holly returned home very late. He had drunk and reeked of alcohol. He leaned against the door and knocked hard, saying, Baby, I'm back. Su Yinxian had been sitting on the sofa waiting for him. When she heard the noise, she immediately ran over and opened the door for him. She couldn't help but frown when she saw how drunk he was. Holly giggled. Baby, I'm back. She was helpless and reached out to help him. I know. Come in quickly. Why did you drink so much? Party. He mumbled a few words. She didn't hear him clearly and didn't ask further. She helped him into the house and placed him on the sofa. Although it wasn't a long distance, he was very heavy. After carrying him for a while, Su Yinxian was already panting. I'll prepare the bathwater for you. Take a rest first. He mumbled a few words, and then lay down on the sofa. When Su Yinxian came out of the bathroom, he had already fallen asleep. She sighed and got a basin of hot water. She took a towel over and wiped his face and chest. Then she took off his shoes and covered him with a blanket. Her slender and fair fingers caressed his face. His handsome eyebrows, his straight nose, his thin lips, and his sharp chin made her chuckle. Since when did she start to miss this man? She squatted in front of him and leaned her head on his chest. She said softly, Holly, if it weren't for me, would your life be different? It was as if he could feel her sadness. He suddenly raised his hand and hugged her shoulder. She was shocked. Thinking that he had woken up, she looked up at him but saw that his eyes were closed. Just like that, she was held in his arms and maintained this position for the entire night. When she woke up, her arms, neck, and body hurt. She tried to move her stiff neck and found that he was still asleep, but his arm was still on her shoulders. She carefully moved his arm away and got up from the ground. Su Yinqian made the last breakfast and brought it to the dining table. Then she took out the small suitcase that she had already packed from the wardrobe. She kissed his forehead and quietly walked out of the room. The moment she locked the door, she looked back at Holly, who was still sleeping soundly. Her eyes glistened with tears. Paul was waiting at the intersection in the car. When he saw her coming, he took a few steps forward, took the suitcase from her hand, and kissed her cheek. "Good morning." She looked back in the direction of home and said, "Let's go." Not long after their car drove away, Holly woke up. He sat up from the sofa and rubbed his hangover head. He frowned and called out, "Baby," he called out a few times, but no one responded. He smelled the fragrance of milk and fried eggs. He stood up and walked into the bedroom. No one was there. He opened the bathroom door, but there was still no one there. He suddenly sobered up. He hurried back to the bedroom and opened the wardrobe. There were only his clothes left. Her clothes were all gone. Her pink Louis Vuitton suitcase was also gone. Holly was stunned. All the blood in his body rushed to his brain. His hands and feet were cold. No, it was impossible. She said that she would not leave him. He ran downstairs and shouted, "Baby Yinqian, where are you?" He had completely lost his mind. He wandered around the neighborhood aimlessly and called her name crazily. Other than the office workers who occasionally glanced at him curiously, no one responded to him. Awesome novel Hongcha 866. Chapter 304. Holly frantically searched for Su Yinqian. If the supervisor hadn't called him and asked him why he was absent from work, he would have forgotten about going to work. He replied that he was sick and had taken a day off. After that, he desperately tried to call Su Yinqian's cell phone, but it was turned off and there was no way to contact her. After a series of emotional changes from shock, pain, and exposure, he finally calmed down and ran to the property management office to pull up the surveillance video below the building. He saw Su Yinqian dragging her suitcase out of the building. He saw a handsome middle-aged man walk up to her, take the suitcase from her hand, and kiss her cheek. The anger in his heart immediately rose like a volcano erupting. Blazing magma spread from the bottom of his heart, almost burning him to ashes. "Damn it, if I find your whereabouts, you're dead meat." At this moment, Holly had become the cold and ruthless young master of the mafia family. His eyes were filled with bloodthirsty murderous intent. However, he had nothing now. It would be difficult to find him with just a man's face. After thinking for a long time, he decided to give up his dignity and ask that person for help. Mikakito was playing with Xiao Guai in the hospital when his cell phone suddenly rang. When he saw the caller ID, he didn't answer immediately. Xiao Guai, who was in his arms, stretched her neck to take a look and cried out in surprise. "It's Uncle Holly." "Uncle Shen, I want to talk to Uncle Holly." The adults kept what happened at Hai's full moon party from the children, so Xiao Guai didn't know that the Uncle Holly she was talking about was actually a bad guy. "Okay." Mikakito helplessly stroked Xiao Guai's little head, which had started to grow hair. After Mikakito picked up the call, he didn't wait for the other party to speak and said in a deep voice, "Holly, I'm at the hospital now. Xiao Guai wants to talk to you." Holly had already prepared a lot of things to say, but he was at a loss for what to do when Zhang Zian beat him to it. He mumbled, "Okay. Naughty girl, here you go." Mikakito handed the phone to Xiao Guai. Xiao Guai called out sweetly, "Uncle Holly, are you okay?" Holly's fingers suddenly tightened around the phone. He cleared his throat and said, "I'm fine, Xiao Guai. How are you?" "I'm fine too," Xiao Guai said softly. "Uncle Holly, let me tell you a piece of good news. I've started to grow my hair. Mommy said that in 2 months, my hair will be tied up and I'll be as beautiful as before." "That's great. Eat more vegetables, and your hair will grow faster. Gigai, you have to listen to the doctor. Don't be afraid to take medicine, okay?" Okay. "Uncle Holly, when are you coming to see me?" "In a few days. I'm very busy during this period of time." Xiao Guai frowned and quickly smiled. "Oh, I see. Then you go ahead. When you're not busy, remember to come and see me." "Okay, I'll definitely come and see you." Uncle Holly, do you have something to say to Uncle Shin? I'll return the phone to him. Holly said, okay. After a short silence, Holly heard Mikakito's deep voice. Why are you looking for me? This was the first time Holly had contacted them since he was kicked out of the castle. Holly paused and said in a deep voice, Mikakito, I admit that I've done a lot of things to let you down. I apologize. Mikakito picked up Xiao Guai and put her aside. He patted her head and walked to the corridor before he replied. Even if you apologize, I won't forgive you. How could you help Su Yinqian hurt Xia? Holly was silent for a moment. I've done everything for the sake of power. It was a short sentence, but it explained all the evil reasons. Beitangshan paused for a moment, then said, if there's anything you need my help with, just say it. He understood Holly. If it wasn't for the fact that he had encountered some difficulties, he wouldn't have lowered his head to him at this time. I want you to help me investigate a person's background and find out his whereabouts. Send me the photo. Holly took a screenshot of Paul's photo from the surveillance video and sent it to Mikakito. Mikakito forwarded it to the Dark Knight family. In less than an hour, he received a response and sent the information to Holly. Holly said, thank you. Mikakito said calmly, Holly, I hope you know what you're doing. Holly flipped through the information sent to him by Mikakito. The man's name was Paul, and he was the president of UWI Construction Company. The information gave him his phone number, company address, and home address. Holly could find Paul through these things. Holly dialed Paul's private number. After 2 rings, a deep voice came from the other end of the line. Hello, this is Paul. Who is this? Holly said coldly. I want to talk to Shui Ruyan. Pass the phone to her. Paul paused and said, she's not here. If you want to talk to her, you can call her on her cell phone. I know she's right beside you. Pass the phone to her. He only suspected that they were together, but he didn't have any evidence. But he didn't expect a familiar voice to come from the other end of the line. It's okay. Let me talk to him. After that, the phone was handed over to Su Yinqian, and Paul considerately left. Su Yinqian called his name in a low voice. Holly. Holly clenched his fists tightly. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a few words. Why? At this moment, Su Yinqian was standing on the balcony of a luxurious villa. She looked at the sparkling swimming pool not far away and said calmly, because I don't want to suffer anymore. Holly, let's break up. Holly said angrily. No, I don't believe you. We were fine 2 days ago. Tell me why. What I said before was a lie. Holly, I've been using you all this time. Go back and beg your uncle. Maybe he can let you return to the family. Shut up. It's not like that. Did my uncle say something to force you to leave me? No, I left you because I don't want to suffer with you. Holly, let me go. No, you're mine. Come back immediately. I'll forgive you and continue to be like before. You know that's impossible. Su Yinqian's eyes were filled with pain. She said word by word. I've fallen in love with Paul. Holly roared in anger. Su Yinqian, you hateful woman. Do you have a heart? I'm sorry. I don't have a heart. I'm very selfish. You should have known that, right? Holly, don't look for me in the future. I won't follow a loser. After Su Yinqian said this, she hung up and turned off the phone without waiting for his reply. Holly was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He threw the phone against the wall. This was the first time he had fallen in love with a woman, but he had been miserably deceived by this woman. He angrily smashed all the things in the room. It was a mess. After the silence, the room was as messy as he was. The air was filled with despair and anger. Holly was a very proud person. He didn't allow any betrayal. When he was still the young master of the Dark Knight family, all the people who betrayed him had gone to hell. This time was no exception. He had already prepared for the worst. He quit his job and went to the black market to buy a pistol. He drove the car to Paul's villa and waited for a few hours until Paul and Su Yinqian got in the car and came out of the villa. Holly was very good at following others. He followed the Rolls-Royce all the way to the airport. He saw Paul and Su Yinqian get out of the car hand in hand. The driver took a red suitcase out of the trunk. He knew that suitcase. It was Su Yinqian's. In the airport hall, Paul hugged Su Yinqian and said softly, "You really don't want me to accompany you?" Su Yinqian smiled. "Well, I know you're busy with work. I'm only going back to China to visit my family. I'll be back soon." Paul smiled. "When are you going to introduce me to your family?" "Next time." Su Yinqian was suddenly enlightened. She, who had been dead, suddenly stood in front of her family with a new face. Would they be willing to forgive her and accept her? Well, there's an old saying in China. An ugly daughter-in-law has to meet her parents-in-law. I, the ugly son-in-law, also have to meet my mother-in-law. He laughed and joked. Su Yinqian smiled and hugged him. "It's almost time. I'm leaving. Well, have a safe trip. I'll miss you." Paul lowered his head and kissed her lips. "Why are you leaving me? Do you really fall in love with this man?" Holly's cold voice came. Su Yinqian quickly pushed Paul away. She looked up in a panic and saw Holly standing 10 meters away. He looked a lot worse, with stubble on his chin, his shirt wrinkled, and his eyes bloodshot. She couldn't help but clench her fists when she thought that someone who cared about his appearance to the point of being harsh would look like this. "Let me ask you. Do you really fall in love with him?" Although he looked unkempt, the domineering and ruthless aura he exuded did not change. He approached her step by step, his eyes like a sharp blade cutting into her. Her legs were trembling, but she didn't retreat. She met his cold gaze and gritted her teeth. "Yes, I love him." Holly's eyes suddenly shot out a murderous look. He said sternly, "I'll give you one more chance. Come back to me." Su Yinqian dug her nails into her palm and said indifferently, "Impossible." "Good, very good." Holly suddenly pulled out a pistol from his waist and pointed it at Su Yinqian. Su Yinqian didn't seem surprised at all. She slowly closed her eyes. "Even if you kill me, I won't go back with you." Paul was stunned. He shouted, "No, don't shoot." "Ah, a pistol!" Someone screamed. The surrounding people retreated. In an instant, only the three of them were left in the huge hall. The airport was in chaos. Someone had already called the police. Come and see. Xingwu 799. Chapter 305. Holly turned a blind eye to everything around him. He aimed the gun at Su Yinqian, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. In the end, he suddenly turned the gun and pointed it at Paul. He said coldly, "If you don't want to go back with me, I'll kill him and tie you up." "No, don't kill me. Miss Shui, please go back with him." Paul immediately turned into a different person and raised his hands. Su Yinqian was extremely disappointed. She didn't expect Paul to be such a man. If it was Holly, he definitely wouldn't be so irresponsible. She only remembered his good points now. She said indifferently, "Don't kill him." Holly reached out a hand and stared at her with his deep eyes. "Come to my side." Su Yinqian shook her head slowly. "I won't go over, Holly. Actually, I've never loved you. I've always been using you. I wanted to use your power to snatch Bailey Han. Until now, my heart still only has Bailey Han." "No, shut up." Holly was already burning with anger. Her words were like adding fuel to the fire. The name Bailey Han was like a curse that broke the last bit of rationality in his mind. He angrily pulled the trigger. Bang! The bullet flew towards Paul's chest. Su Yinqian suddenly flew in front of Paul. The bullet shot into her chest at an extremely fast speed. A hole was opened in her chest, and blood flowed out of it. Holly was stunned as if he was struck by lightning. Her body slowly slid down. "Ruyan." Paul growled and hugged her. He was terrified. "Ruyan, why did you do this?" She didn't know why either. Perhaps she just suddenly wanted to be a good person. Yinqian. Holly rushed forward and snatched her from Paul's arms. He carried her and ran out of the airport in panic. He kept saying, don't be afraid. You'll be fine. Baby, you'll be fine." Su Yinqian looked up at his anxious face. Her eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She grabbed his arm and said very softly, "Holly, there's no need. It's too late. No, you'll be fine." Tears welled up in Holly's eyes. He hugged her and covered her bleeding chest with one hand. He begged, "Yinqian, please don't get hurt. I promise. Even if you want to leave me, I'll agree." Don't get hurt, don't get hurt. I won't leave. I won't leave anymore. Su Yunqian looked at his tear-streaked face in confusion. She said intermittently, Actually, I lied to you. I don't love Bailey Han anymore. I love you. I love you so much, so much. Don't say anymore. Please don't say anymore. Taxi, taxi. Holly stood at the intersection with her, who was covered in blood. He waved his hand wildly in the wind. Finally, a taxi stopped in front of him. He carried her into the car and said, Hospital. The driver was frightened by the blood on their bodies and immediately drove to the nearest hospital at the speed of an airplane. Baby, it'll be fine. Hang in there. We'll get to the hospital soon. Holly covered her wound tightly. Tears rolled down her face. She smiled absent-mindedly and said intermittently, Holly, I'm so lucky to have met you. In this life you spoil me. In the next life, I'll love you. No, I don't want the next life. I want this life. Su Yunqian, I order you. Don't let anything happen to you. Don't give up. We still have children. I haven't proposed to you. How can you abandon me? Holly held her hand tightly. His tone was fierce, but he couldn't stop the tears in his eyes. She twitched violently and coughed. Bright red blood flowed out of the corner of her mouth. Holly, no matter what happens, you have to live well. Together with my share, together. No, I want you to live with me. Please hang in there. Holly held her hand tightly. With deep panic in his eyes, he shouted at the driver, Faster, faster. Su Yunqian's eyes were flowing with tears. Her eyes were gradually losing focus. Holly, when I die, send me back to China and apologize to my family for me. Her body gradually turned cold. Her fingers in his hand became stiff. Her eyes were also losing focus. She stopped breathing amidst his mournful cries. Holly hugged her and cried in grief. Yunqian, how can you abandon me? You said that you would stay with me. You lying woman. Do you know that I love you? I love you so much. Unfortunately, she couldn't hear his call anymore. His tragic cries echoed in the narrow car. Even the driver in the front seat couldn't help but cry. The news of Su Yunqian's death finally reached the ears of Xiaodong and the others. Once a person was dead, all the past events should be put aside. After some discussion, Xiaodong, Bailey Han, and Beitangshan finally decided to attend her funeral. The funeral parlor was very quiet. There were only a few people in it. Su Yunqian was wearing a beautiful wedding dress and lying in the coffin. She looked serene, as if she was just sleeping. Holly was wearing a black suit. He knelt in front of the coffin. He held her hand with a diamond ring in his hand and said in a solemn and low voice, Yunqian, whether you like it or not, from today onwards, you are my wife. No matter if it's a blessing or a curse, illness or health, I will love and cherish you. Even death can't separate us. Watching him put the ring on Su Yunqian's finger, Xiaodong couldn't help but cry. She turned her head and couldn't bear to look. Bailey Han put his arm around her shoulder. After Holly put the ring on Su Yunqian's finger, he leaned over and kissed her lips gently. He murmured, Yunqian, I love you. Heavy footsteps sounded. Paul's tall figure appeared at the door. He was wearing a black suit with a white chrysanthemum in his pocket. He looked very sad. He walked to Su Yunqian's coffin and slowly bowed. Holly suddenly jumped up and punched Paul's cheek. He roared, Bastard, it's all your fault. If it weren't for you, she wouldn't have died. Paul was caught off guard and was knocked to the ground by Holly's punch. He covered his cheek in embarrassment. Holly didn't stop and rushed up again. Bailey Han and Mika Keto looked on coldly and didn't intend to stop him. Paul didn't have time to get up and was kicked hard again. Holly vented all his anger on Paul. He grabbed his collar with one hand and kicked him up from the ground. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched him hard on the head. No, stop. Paul hurriedly grabbed his wrist. You're the one who killed Ruyan. Do you know that she came to me because she was pregnant? Holly suddenly stopped. After a while, he grabbed his collar tightly with both hands and said fiercely, What did you say? Say it again. I said, because she was pregnant and you didn't want the child. She came to me because she wanted to give the child a happy family. Paul was anxious and scared. He blurted out everything. I don't believe you. You must be lying. Holly punched him hard on the nose. Paul's nose was bruised and his face was swollen. He was bleeding profusely. Whether I'm lying or not, you can go to the hospital and ask the doctor. Holly, knowing that you killed your wife and child doesn't feel good, does it? Paul grimaced in pain. He couldn't beat Holly in physical strength, so he used words to hurt him. Shut up. I'm going to kill you. Holly kicked Paul to the ground and punched and kicked him. Baitangshan had seen enough. He reckoned that if they were to continue fighting, Paul would become a cripple. He waved his hand, and Vermilion Bird strode to Holly's back. Taking advantage of Holly not paying attention, Vermilion Bird struck the back of Holly's head. Holly, who had already lost his reason due to anger, fainted on the ground. Mikakito said calmly, "Take him back." Yes. Suzaku lifted Holly with one hand and carried him to the parking lot of the funeral parlor. She stuffed him into the car. Xiaodong watched as Suzaku's figure disappeared into the distance. She then glanced at Paul, who was lying on the ground covered in blood. She sighed. Brother Shen, let's send him to the hospital. Someone will take care of him later. He won't die. Don't worry. Baitangshan walked to the front of Su Yunqian's coffin and slowly bowed. He faintly said, "Next time, learn what to do and what not to do." After he returned, Xiaodong and Bailihan walked to the coffin and bowed. Bailihan remained silent. Xiaodong pursed her lips and said, "Have a safe journey." Holly was dispirited. He had gone to the hospital where Su Yunqian had gone for a checkup. The doctor had said that she was indeed pregnant. During the operation, she had changed her mind at the last minute. He remembered that she had once asked him, "Do you like children?" She had even said, "How about we have a child?" How had he answered her? He had said that he didn't really like children. He had said that their current situation was not good, and that it was not suitable for them to have children. B*****. He was really a B*****. He had not suspected why she had suddenly mentioned children. Because of his answer, she must have mistakenly thought that he did not want to keep the child, and wanted to create a good environment for the child. That was why she had abandoned him and followed Paul. He had actually killed the woman he loved the most, and their child with his own hands. Holly screamed in the empty room. He punched the wall viciously with his fists. His hands were bleeding, but he refused to stop. Every day, he held Su Yunqian's urn in his arms and refused to let go. In just 3 days, he had become like a homeless man. He muttered, "Baby, you said that if you wanted to go home, I would send you home." Holly sold all his assets, bought a plane ticket, and flew to China. Come and see. Xinwu 799. Chapter 306. Sidier the Su family. The Su family welcomed a special guest. He was a foreigner wearing a black suit. His hair and beard had not been trimmed for a long time. He looked a little down and out. His eyes were empty and his face was expressionless. He looked like a puppet. He was Holly. Su Bolin looked at Holly, who was sitting on the sofa opposite him. He was holding a black box in his arms like it was a treasure. He was holding it tightly and it looked very strange. Su Bolin looked at him inquisitively and said in English, "Sir, you said you are my daughter's husband, but my daughter has passed away." Holly acted as if he did not hear him. His eyes were blank as if he was lost in his memories. He said slowly, "Yin Qian and I met in England. I helped her do a lot of wrong things. After her reputation in Sidier was ruined, she could not continue living here, so she asked me to help her. We faked her death, and she jumped into the sea to fake her death. I helped her create a fake identity and sent her to Korea for plastic surgery." When Su Bolin heard this, he shouted excitedly, "Wait, you said my daughter is not dead. Tell me, where is she now?" Holly did not answer him. Like a robot, he said mechanically, "We did a lot of wrong things again. Later the matter was exposed. I was disinherited by my uncle, and was chased out of the house. My financial situation was very poor. She never complained and always accompanied me. She was pregnant. She thought I did not want this child. So in order to protect the child and to create a good environment for the child, she planned to break up with me and be with another man. His hollow eyes gradually filled with sorrow, and his tone was also filled with sorrow. I thought she had betrayed me. I held a gun, and wanted to threaten her to return to my side. I shot at that man, and she stood in front of him. It was me. I killed my wife and child. Sue Boland finally calmed down from the pain of losing his daughter, who knew that a strange man would come to his door and tell him that his daughter was not dead. His heart was lit with hope, thinking that he could see his daughter again. However, that man quickly shattered his hope. Sue Boland was angry and sad. His finger trembled as he pointed at Holly's nose. His lips trembled, but he did not say a word for a long time. Holly expressionlessly placed the black box on the table. He slowly leaned forward and knelt in front of Sue Boland with his arms on the ground and his head on the floor. Father-in-law, I'm here today to apologize to you. The first thing I'm sorry about is me. I'm sorry. I killed your daughter and grandson. His forehead hit the floor heavily, and it was already red and swollen. Yinqian asked me to apologize to you. I'm sorry that I lied to you and mother and hurt your feelings. He knocked his forehead heavily on the ground again, and the floor was already stained with blood. The third apology is from Yinqian and me. We're sorry that we let you and mother-in-law down. His forehead finally hit the floor, and he stayed there for a long time, unwilling to get up. Tears streamed down Sue Boland's face. He held his chest with one hand and covered his eyes with the other. Tears slid down his face and rolled onto his clothes. Honey, what's going on? Are you okay? Mrs. Sue came back from outside and saw the unusual scene in the living room. Holly did not look up. He was still kneeling on the ground like a statue. Sue Boland's shoulders trembled, and his right hand was still covering his eyes. No one answered Mrs. Sue's question. She was a bit uneasy. She walked up to Sue Boland and pushed his shoulder. Honey, what's wrong? Sue Boland could no longer control himself and finally burst into tears. Mrs. Sue had never seen her husband lose his composure like this. She quickly pulled out a tissue and wiped his tears. She panicked and said, Honey, what's going on? Say something. Do you want me to die from anxiety? Sue Boland shook his head. He was so emotional that he could not say a complete sentence. Mrs. Sue was anxious and worried. She was not in the mood to ask why a foreign man was kneeling in front of her husband, patting his back and comforting him softly. After a long time, he finally calmed down. Sue Boland looked at Holly, who was still kneeling in front of him, and waved his hand sadly. You can go. I don't want to see you for the time being. Holly quietly turned to face Mrs. Sue and kowtowed. Mrs. Sue was shocked. She quickly went forward to help him up. What are you doing? Get up. Sue Boland suddenly shouted. Don't worry about him. Let him kowtow. Mrs. Sue was so scared that she retracted her hand. She stood there, not knowing what to do. Holly kowtowed 2 more times. When he stood up, his forehead was covered in blood. He looked at the small black box on the table, turned around, and walked to the door. Mrs. Sue called out to his back. Sir, is the wound on your head okay? Holly did not stop. As if he did not hear her question, he walked out of their sight step by step. Honey, what's going on? Mrs. Sue was confused. Sue Boland shook his head. His voice was hoarse. It's nothing. You can go upstairs first. I want to be alone. He slowly closed his eyes. He did not want to say anything more. Mrs. Sue hesitated for a moment. Seeing that her husband seemed tired, she did not ask any more questions. She looked at him worriedly and walked upstairs. After hearing the footsteps disappear, Sue Boland slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was locked on the black box that Holly brought. He had already guessed what was inside. He reached out his trembling hand and took Su Yinqian's urn. He held it tightly in his arms. Murky tears poured out again. He stroked the urn with one hand as if he was stroking his daughter's hair. He choked with sobs. Yinqian, my silly daughter. Why did you choose such a path? Sue Boland could not control his emotions. He punched the back of the chair with his fist. Mrs. Sue did not go far. She was eavesdropping at the corner of the stairs. She heard her husband's suppressed sobs. She quietly poked her head out and saw him holding the black box with tears streaming down his face. She did not understand what was going on. Why was her husband holding the box and calling her daughter's name? Yunqian, how could you bear to let a white-haired person die before a black-haired person? Su Bolin covered his face with one hand and held the urn tightly with the other. The confusion in Mrs. Su's heart was like a snowball, rolling bigger and bigger. Moreover, her husband's sadness infected her, and she couldn't help but tear up. She quietly went downstairs, walked behind him, and called out, "Hubby!" Su Bolin trembled. His hands trembled, and the urn almost fell. He hurriedly held it with both hands and raised his teary face to look at his wife. "Honey, what's inside?" Mrs. Su was confused when she saw her husband so worried about the black box. Su Bolin wiped the tears from his face and said in a displeased tone, "Nothing. Didn't I tell you to go upstairs? Why did you come down again?" "Honey, are you hiding something from me?" Mrs. Su walked in front of him. "Let me see what's inside. Huilon, what's wrong with you today? Hurry up and go upstairs." The more Su Bolin tried to hide it, the more flustered he became. He held the urn even tighter. "You're acting strange today too. I'm your wife. What can't you tell me?" Mrs. Su stubbornly held the urn tightly with both hands. As the two argued, the urn fell to the ground with a bang, and the ashes inside spilled all over the floor. Mrs. Su was stunned. The ashes on the floor looked like. Just as a thought popped up in her mind, before she could confirm it, the furious Su Bolin almost subconsciously raised his hand and slapped her across the face. This slap shocked both of them. You hit me." Mrs. Su covered her face and cried. Su Bolin loved his wife very much and had never hit her before. He panicked and wanted to go forward to check on her injuries, but she pushed him away. She angrily pointed at the floor and roared, "Su Bolin, you have to tell me what happened. Otherwise I'll divorce you." Su Bolin originally wanted to hide it from his wife and son, so that they wouldn't be tortured again. However, his wife insisted on getting to the bottom of it. Seeing that he couldn't hide it anymore, he had to tell them the truth. Mrs. Su couldn't take the blow and fainted on the spot. Su Bolin hurriedly called the servants and rushed her to the hospital. Su Jin heard the news and rushed over from the company. He anxiously asked, "Dad, what happened? Why did Mom have a high blood pressure attack?" Su Bolin was already exhausted, so he spilled the beans. Su Jin staggered a few steps and sat down on the bench in the hospital corridor. His mind was in a mess and was about to explode. The father and son were silent for a long time. More than an hour later, Mrs. Su woke up. The first thing she wanted was to see her daughter's ashes. Su Bolin had already ordered the servants to clean up all the ashes in the living room into the urn. At this time, he also asked the servants to send the urn to the hospital. Mrs. Su hugged the urn and cried bitterly. She almost fainted several times. In the end, Su Jin couldn't stand it and asked the doctor to inject her with a tranquilizer. "Dad, how can I find that man?" Su Jin's face was livid. His eyes were full of hatred and his fists were clenched. He couldn't wait to find Holly and tear him apart. "I don't know." When Holly left, Su Bolin was still sad and didn't have time to ask him. The Su family thought that they would never see Holly again. Unexpectedly, the next morning, as soon as they opened the door, they saw a blond man kneeling at the door. His head was buried deep and his movements were as humble as the mud. Su Jin didn't need to ask to guess who he was. He rushed in front of him and grabbed him by the collar. He dragged him up from the ground and punched him in the face. "You bastard, how dare you show up again? I'm going to kill you." Welfare Hongcha 866, that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.